Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies and citizens, this joy to the world, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies and citizens, this joy to the world. I bring a message of the truth amidst a world full of lies. I graduated from learning lies to seek the truth. Indoctrinated to be too blind to see the proof. I once was lost, but now I'm found, so I shine light. And everywhere I go is darkness, so I shine bright.
Indeed, all who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. But evil men and imposters will proceed from bad to worse, deceiving and being deceived. That's a passage from 2 Timothy. I'm your kingdom fam with the globe choke. I'm sorry, your kingdom fam with the globe and a choke slam, better known as WesBlaze. And this is the most popular series on my channel, Uncommon Ground. And I want to thank everybody who has helped to make it so, including my friend here who continues to join me, the brother Sean Griffin. Good to see you, bro.
Thanks, WesBlaze. Nice to be here again. You know, it is a reality that you can choke on the globe lie after you have your palate cleared with the truth of what the Father created and what He's founded through hundreds of prophets in His Word, as well as thousands of years of testimony, observable science. So we're excited that we get to be in a position to present to the people how they're being lied to, basically. And we're going to do that some more tonight.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. It's episode number 36, affectionately titled International Sfake Station, as we will be talking about the ISS because they're space faking with the Sfake Station, right? The powers that shouldn't be seek to convince the populace that an international group of space agencies have constructed and operate a manned artificial structure currently in orbit around the Earth. So this episode, we will explore the controversial tactics involved in this intricate deception. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too, brother. In fact, I'm just so grateful that we have folks that we have so many people in the live chat, like 112 that shows in the live chat tonight. That's awesome. So many new patrons this last month. Just huge blessing to us, guys. Just thank you so much. If you love what we're doing, that's a great way to support us. You see those links in the video description. But we also get some great testimonies.
Exactly.
That's always exciting.
Yeah, we've gotten a few of those already today in our live chat. Big shout out to L Wickens25 for the super sticker. Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, also, Rich P just dropped a super sticker. He wants to see me flying by on wires. Like
no,
my chair to roll.
Yeah, right. We're gonna look at some liars on wires today, but we're not one of them. We're sitting firmly in our chairs.
It's like they're up there trying to do Crouching Tiger in space.
For real.
It's crazy.
Yep, man. Yep. So we got a few comments. We just want to show some love to you guys. Continued support. We love you guys. Thank y'all for all your great encouraging words. James Sizemore says, another great video, guys. Bless both of y'all's hearts. Thanks for the knowledge for all these times. This is my favorite page. That was over on our Uncommon Ground Facebook page. Much
Awesome.
appreciated,
You,
James. Yeah.
Ashley McMullen says, absolutely a resource for homeschoolers. Uh-oh.
Oh, man, was it me that froze? Testing. As soon as we start. Help me out in the chat, guys. Is it me that's frozen? Or am I still on and Sean's frozen? Froze Sean. We is good. Sean froze. It was Sean that froze. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read this. I hate when that happens every time. Ashley McMullen says, absolutely a resource for homeschoolers. I tell my kids what I've seen and read from you guys and others.
The culture. I tell my kids what I've seen.
He's cutting in and out now, right? Many times they're watching with me. Keep dishing it out. We're listening. Thank you very much, Ashley. Sorry for the technical difficulties, guys. It never fails. As soon as we start the show. It's the space ice, Rich P says. So I'm still on. And I just wanted to read another comment we got in the live chat earlier while we're waiting for Sean to be able to come back. Oh, there's two Seans now. Are y'all seeing this? Deanna Lynn at the very beginning of the show on the live chat, she said, thank you. She says, looking forward to this episode. I live in Space Coast, Florida. We were packed with 100,000 videos today. 100,000 subscribers. No, she said 100,000 visitors today. I'm assuming for the Artemis launch, right? New day, Saturday, she says, estimated 400,000 visitors. Get me out of here, LOL, she says. You're back now, Sean, aren't you?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
I am back.
Yep.
So,
They're already at it.
That.
You're all
yeah,
right.
It's just a choppy connection up here at the ISS. So appreciate you guys bearing with us as we try to stream from 250 miles above the non-existent curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, exactly.
So
at one point there were two of you on the screen. It had 3 windows opened up.
Yeah, that's like the glitches you see on the ISS we're going to look at tonight.
We're going to look at some of those. That's right.
Yeah.
The green screen glitches. Chris T here says, great stream as always, brothers. I have tried to open the eyes of Globers many times, and they always have an excuse for everything. Much love. So we are going to look at one of those excuses tonight, and this is just a small, albeit impactful facet of the overall deception to portray our world as part of a heliocentric evolutionary cosmology, when the reality is the creator of heaven and earth through his prophets repeatedly and consistently describes his creation much differently, right? A stationary geocentric plane enclosed in a series of solid structures above. And we've built our case for this biblical model of creation in a number of episodes, emphatically expounding the scriptures, historical records, observed phenomenon, and experimentation, etc. However, tonight, the International Sfake Station is what we're going to check out. You got a teaser loaded up, brother?
We are ready.
Let's show the people the trailer. Thank you kindly. All right, just a few clips there to get you guys pumped and amped for the episode tonight. I'm excited to get into it. What do we have on the slides, brother? Let's jump right in. You got your mute button. Got it?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So
we're going to get it figured out here. Yeah.
A little bit of a look here at the history of the space station.
That's right. Real quick, created by the Most High. Much appreciated. We thank you, as well as Vicky Lott. Thank you kindly, ma'am.
Super chest,
much appreciated. So the project, which began as an American effort, was long delayed by funding and technical problems, originally called Freedom in the 1980s by U.S. President Ronald Reagan, who authorized NASA to build it within 10 years. It was redesigned in the 1990s to reduce costs and expand international involvement, at which time it was renamed. In 1993, the United States and Russia agreed to merge their separate space station plans into a single facility, integrating their respective modules and incorporating contributions from the European Space Agency, the ESA, and Japan, JAXA.
So during the Cold War, no, or just right after the Cold War, right? The supposed fall of the Soviet Union. A year later, they decide that we're going to collaborate with space stations. Is that right?
That's apparently, yeah.
Is this where they hooked up the Soyuz space module?
Yeah, the Soyuz
is that when
belongs
they framed
to
it? Yeah.
Well, we'll look here in a second. It'll give us the date and the year of when that started to happen, right? Because it took them a little over 10 years to complete the construction of the International Space Station, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, where are those pictures? Any documentation on that? No?
No, I in all my research, I was looking, I really dug to try to find some actual
Wow.
video footage of the construction here. And
Man, if
no,
only we'd invented cameras in the 1970s or 80s.
lots of cartoons though. You can definitely find some
Okay.
animation. Yeah, some CGI
Awesome.
is there and ready, and you can see all of that. Let's would you read some of these for here, bro?
Sure. The International Space Station weighs almost do you mind if I preface this with supposedly or allegedly?
Please do.
Or-
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. This is
So the story we're told is that the specs of them building the space station is they claim the International Space Station weighs almost 400 tons. It covers an area as big as a football pitch. Is that supposed to be a football field? Did
Yeah,
an
like-
English person write this? Right.
it's some one of the official sources here, right?
They were British.
Maybe so.
Each part of the station was taken to space and gradually built in orbit, approximately 400 kilometers above the Earth's surface. ISS is now the largest artificial body in orbit and can be seen from Earth. The ISS serves as a microgravity and space environment research laboratory. They claim ISS travels at 17,500 miles per hour. This means it orbits Earth every 90 minutes.
Mm.
They claim crew members conduct experiments in biology, human biology, physics, astronomy, meteorology, and other fields such as clownery, water balloon tricks, stuffed animal tricks, logos for wearing jerseys for the Super Bowl, throwing footballs back and forth.
Halloween costumes, chasing each
That's
other
where
around in a
60
gorilla.
million a day is going to clownery, to doing morning interviews on morning shows. Lots of science happening up there, guys. Don't never forget that.
Interviewing with school children, doing backflips, getting caught in their wires. Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah,
Just amazing. Putting their fingers in holes so they can stop the escaping atmosphere when they randomly find a hole in the artificial body in orbit. So sounds like an artificial story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 400 tons. That's 800,000 pounds. Ton is 2,000 pounds. So
yeah. So is there anyone in the audience that is good at physics, and that's the math on how fast you need to be going to be constantly falling at 800,000 pounds?
apparently, because sometimes gravity makes things stick to things, and sometimes gravity makes things orbit things.
Well, the story, right, is that like it's they're at a speed that gravity just holds it down just enough, and the speed is just right. It's that Goldilocks speed where they're not taking off into space, but they're not falling down into the Earth's atmosphere. But wouldn't that be like literally to the measure of like how much it weighs? So like the moment that the new cargo ship shows up with resupply, they got to slow down, right? Or they got to go faster. Is that what it is?
I don't hear any of that, when they talk about the dockings and the space shuttles docking with it.
Yeah.
You don't ever hear anything about the slowing down and speeding up
That's strange.
that I'm aware of.
But you know what? My green screen is giving me problems, but that's just par for the course with tonight's show.
Is that a dog?
No, it's my room fan apparently is. Oh, it's because the dog messed up. Hang on, I'll be back.
That's all right. Y'all want to just start over? Can we just no from the top if we could? Well, there was one other comment too that we got earlier that I thought was really special. I'll read. Devin Horner says, "I love what y'all are doing. I have been on vacation for the last 4 days, and I have been binge watching your show. I'm totally mind blown. I am now an FE'er, right? And my whole house thinks I'm crazy. Join the club. Welcome to the club, because, yep, the whole world will." But we're glad to have you on the side of truth, our friend. Thank you for your kind words.
That was really nice. We appreciate that.
Well, on January 29th, 1998, senior government officials from the following 15 countries met in Washington and signed an agreement for the design, development, operation, and utilization of the space station. We got USA, Russia, Canada, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom, all working together. Even throughout, tension and war, right, between USA and Russia. Yeah, they're still.
It's amazing.
Together.
Yeah. So I can't apparently like right now, we're fighting a proxy war with Russia via the Ukraine. They're literally handing out medals for armed American servicemen who are helping the Ukrainians. in this skirmish. But don't worry, it's not a war. So if that's the case, then yeah, even people that we're at war with, it doesn't matter. We can
It's
just
just a
continue.
rumor of war, I think, at this point, right?
Yeah.
Rumors of wars.
So yeah, just we're always going to be in support in space. As soon as you leave the get into that thermosphere, no more political things happen anymore. It's just all love. Is that the idea?
I guess so. Apparently, yeah, they got to come together for science in the name of science.
It's interesting.
Don't forget that. Would you read this one?
So the first module of the ISS, the Zarya, was launched on November 20th, 1998 on a Russian Proton rocket. 2 weeks later, a NASA module, the Unity, was launched aboard Space Shuttle Flight STS-88 and attached to the Zarya by astronauts during EVAs. This process continued till all the modules were assembled. NASA and its partners finished the building of the space station in 2011.
Okay, so from 1998 to 2011, almost 13 years. They like that number 13, 33, right?
Yeah, but you know that this wasn't the first iteration. Like they had the Astrolab up there since 1978, right?
Oh, really? Yeah, no, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, same altitude and everything with U.S. Servicemen, space servicemen that were up there. I'm just repeating the narrative.
Yeah.
So like, it's just hilarious to me. But you're saying like this bigger Megazoid formed between Russia and the United States. Is that what you're saying?
Megazoid.
Yeah.
You talking Power Rangers?
Yeah. It had to come together like Voltron.
Yeah, it was a Megazord specifically.
Yeah. Excuse me.
I just grew up as a very big fan of Power Rangers, so you hurt my feelings. No.
Oh, sorry. We won't.
I was the white one for Halloween every year. What? So no. But yeah, they had to come together and definitely like Voltron. Yep, connect together the pieces to make a massive robot Gundam type fighter. Apparently,
amazing
to fight the anti-science crowd. That's what they're trying to do. Well, what's next? Yeah, so it wasn't just put together overnight. Definitely took some time, but as we were saying earlier, not a single video of its construction exists. You can find some cartoons. That's it.
So that whole time, and not a single video ever came out. I mean, just do we really believe that? Like they don't have a single video?
Lots of spacewalks where they're just holding weird looking tools and doing a whole lot of nothing on these spacewalks.
You notice that too, that they're never actually doing anything on the spacewalks?
I do. Yep. They're
it's
just
really kind of strange.
Fiddling and fidgeting with things, right?
By the way, we did find a clip of its construction.
Good. Epic. Epic. Yep.
That 1998 to 2011. It just kept rising into space.
That was the Red Space Rangers portion, his shuttle. It was in a Tyrannosaurus, apparently. So now we know.
They can do whatever they want. They're getting paid 60 mil a day.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, I mean, if there's no videos or pictures of its actual construction, it just appeared up there. How credible is that? Like, would an insurance company believe that when they want to go insure, the life? They need schematics when they need proof that things are built according to schematics. Because I'm sure those astronauts that have any kind of health insurance or life insurance, can they get policies like that? If there's no proof of what they actually work on in such a extremely dangerous environment is actually real and has safety measures involved, is there no? I guess OSHA doesn't go up there and test things, right?
Probably not. No, they gotta. They don't have a health inspector going aboard the space station. Definitely no independent.
That's amazing.
Yeah, definitely no independent. Sources, outside sources coming in to check up on these things. It's all internal. In-house controlled. But yeah, don't you know that they tell us you can see when it's doing its orbit, you can see it pass overhead, even with the naked eye, if the light on it is bright enough, right?
No, but I know what they say, but yeah. I love the graphic that you're using here, where you have the football pitch with the ISS over it, and you're thinking to yourself, Wes, have you been on a plane before in the continental U.S.?
I have dozens of times.
It flies, usually over the suburbs, like it's taking off from the airport, starts flying over the suburbs, and you see all the houses below you and the school districts. You'll see a football field almost 9 times out of 10, if you're in a window seat, right, and you're looking out the window, and you can see that football field as you climb up just to 20,000 feet, not even at cruising altitude yet, like 33,000 feet, and you can barely see that football field.
Right. It turns.
And then when you get to actual cruising altitude, you cannot see houses or football fields or anything of that size on the ground.
No, it just becomes massive patches, right? The block work of the road work and the farmland and this and that. So yeah, it's about the same size as a football field.
Because that's how our eyes work, right?
Yeah.
These things get smaller as it gets further away.
Right.
And at 30 something thousand feet, just at 30,000 feet, which is only like what, 5-6 miles in the air, I cannot see something the size of the football field. But they're trying to tell us that us standing on the ground can look up and see something 238,000 miles away.
No, 250,000 miles. No, 250.
I'm sorry,
miles.
250 miles. The moon's 238,000.
Right.
250 miles, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know what the multiplier is on that, but if I can't see something 6 miles away, but it's telling me I can see this flying at 17,500 miles an hour at 250 miles away, I just don't believe that story.
No, me neither. And we'll look at some evidence to try to help other people picture what we're talking about too, right? Because a 747 is just almost as big as the alleged International Space Station, and when at cruising altitude of 5 miles, a 747 appears as a tiny speck in the sky, right? So if the 747 was twice the normal height at 10 miles, it would be unseeable with the human eye, invisible. But we're asked to believe that we can see the ISS at 50 times that height. You know, the cruising altitude of a 747. But let's check out what else we got. So here's just some photos.
So someone claims to have caught the ISS at 17,000 miles an hour, flying by. Can't see a fly. Literally can't see a fly. Can't focus in with the high-powered camera on a fly that flies by in front of your lens at 30 miles an hour. But I can zoom in 250 miles away at 17,000 miles an hour and zoom in on the Megazoid.
Select photographers apparently are able to. It's very select, right? We got in these amateur photographer groups and amateur astrophotographer groups, you know, there's a big group of them that are really amateur that are like, oh, those guys are so lucky that they're able to get a still shot of the ISS and have it clear in its transit, because there's only a few of them, which is a little suspicious, I would think. Only a few of the photographers are able to get these clear of a shot as it's moving 17,000 miles an hour. But the photo of the ISS, go ahead.
Yeah, because normal photographers know better, right? Like they know that if they can zoom in on a plane 6 miles up and the features of the moon get more crystal clear in the background, then if they were actually able to zoom in on something 250 miles away, they should have an amazingly crystal clear surface of the moon on the background.
Yeah.
But they don't. No. The clarity of the moon never comes greater into focus. Right. So yeah, there's just any real photographer would tell you there's something, it's whatever's flying up there is not 250 miles away, and it's not what they say it is. So
yeah, exactly. Like, do you remember from the trailer, there was a quick scene in the trailer teaser that I made of just a blur going by, right? Yeah. And they had a few frames of it where it's moving like 3 inches across the screen. Yeah. It's a blur every time.
That blur is the Senate Committee on Appropriations and how they pass the budget for NASA. It's just a blur, just moving on down.
Yeah, but if the object here is flying at near the same height, basically the object has to be flying at near the same height of the plane in order for somebody to be capturing an image of it, a real photograph of it, if that were the case. But you can go ahead to the next one.
It's amazing, brother.
People claim they can see the ISS in space, but it's the size of a football field, and you can't see a football field from space. So you see how that works? You flip it around. You mentioned a second ago, but if you flip it around, you can't do both. It doesn't work both ways. Then
you got better lighting on the ground.
Right. But then they'll say that the ISS is lit up from, it's reflecting the sun's light, and so that's why you can see the light. But we'll look a little more into that. Let's keep going. ISS at roughly 2 kilometers altitude over a football field, right? So somebody's taken Google Maps, they've figured out the math, or Google Earth probably really is what this is, and they've found a football field, and they've overlaid the ISS over it to, simulate the size of it. And we're going to zoom out from here. So if you'll go to the next one, And keep in mind that, yeah, it darkens, right? You're getting above atmosphere, you're getting above the scattering of the light, and it's going to get a little darker the higher up you go. And the ISS here is at roughly 20 kilometers altitude over a football field, and the levels are darkened. And you see that little tiny red speck. That's what that football field is starting to look like at 20 kilometers.
It is the red Power Ranger.
Yeah. Tyrannosaurus. Okay. All right.
So
there's one more here.
40 miles. Wow.
Yeah. 40 kilometers altitude over a football field. And the background levels are darkened just a little bit more. But the ISS is supposedly 10 times further than 40 kilometers at over 400 kilometers. Which
is hard to even picture because no one's truly got a picture from that altitude.
No.
So that's why it's all doctored. And it's funny. I don't have unfortunately, brother, I don't have a still prepared for this, but just as a quick, I remember do you remember when the ISS used to have that 24-hour feed?
Yeah.
And it would always they claim because they make the revolution every 90 minutes around the earth, and suddenly like 45 minutes they would be on the dark side and they would lose signal. You know what I mean? So I remember watching it one night, and the signal came back on, and they were flying over the Mediterranean, like over Italy. And I took a screenshot, and I took the screenshot of the curvature of the earth that they had. And then I just completed the circle.
Finished the curve, right?
Yeah. Italy was like 40% of the earth.
Exactly.
It was crazy.
Right.
It's crazy. So like just none of the proportions match. Any engineer, anyone that understands, like an artist or a photographer that understands perspective and lines and angles, it's just none of this makes any sense.
Which would make more sense if they were taking that photo you said of Italy. If they had taken that photo from more like 60, 70,000 feet from just a regular aircraft and had a wide angle lens on it, right? We talked about fisheye lenses last episode, and yeah, that's what that would look like. But not from so-called, what's the altitude? They say that it's at 400 kilometers. That's 248.548 miles, which is 1,312,335 feet. So what's funny is this is still technically considered low Earth orbit, right? About the distance of New York City to Washington, D.C. It's a 4-hour drive distance. That's the altitude, the distance up above the Earth that the ISS is allegedly.
And apparently it's in the thermosphere, which can supposedly get up to ridiculous temperature ranges. But they've got incredible air conditioners up there. So don't worry about all that.
Yeah, thermosphere gets up to, 3,000 degrees, upwards of 3,000 degrees.
Direct view of the sun, no atmosphere to block the radiation of the sun. Who knows what kind of, do they have double paned windows on the ISS?
Doesn't look like it. No.
Doesn't look like it. No. Go ahead.
Don't you know, Sean, that they have an app? They got an app that will track it. There's an app that'll track it, and you can go look at the app, and it'll tell you exactly where it is.
Must be real. There's no way they could fake this. They can never make a video game that would do this. That would be impossible. So this must be real.
But we do want to remind you guys, if you go to the next one, that so does Santa Claus.
He's got an app tracker.
Santa Claus has a tracker app with the Google map in it. You can get that on Google Play. We don't recommend it.
That's amazing. You can track 2 lies at once.
It is. UG Jokes. Hashtag UG Jokes.
That's great.
And don't you guys know that we've showed this several times now, I think, on our show, that there's alleged satellite and space debris. They say like 100 tons of space debris. NASA has claimed at one point 100 tons of space debris hit the Earth every day. So
that's
just lots of trash just floating around up there. Lots of broken satellites, right? They've got thousands of them up there. And this is a representation of what it would look like, that what you kind of should see or should expect to see from a vantage point of low Earth orbit, maybe. But if you go to the next one.
So that famous 2015 picture where supposedly was it the Cassini satellite? They claim they shot the moon crossing the transit of the Earth. Wouldn't you see like a ton of little streaks across the Earth from all these satellites flying by at 17,500 miles an hour?
The satellites and the space debris, one would think we would see that, or maybe even just see them like in all the footage that they show us of, the Soyuz above the International Space Station, or taking video from the International Space Station of the Earth. You never see any of this junk.
Interesting.
It's not floating around. And so NASA claims 100 tons of space debris hits the Earth every day. And this is what they say it looks like. But what it should look like, I think that's from the movie Gravity, right?
Yeah.
Just chaos, obliteration, right? if these other specs are moving around at 17,000 miles per hour, like the ISS is allegedly, then these things would be weapons of mass destruction, just coming through and tearing holes through the ISS.
Yeah, I think it was 2016, maybe 2017, where they released an article saying that some private contracting company had built a space trash man. Basically, they don't call it the space trash man; they call it something ridiculous name. But basically, it's an automated drone that would go up into the areas, the different altitude levels where these supposed satellites are, and it had this horrible, like PlayStation 1 graphics animation of this big box when this big sweeper broom thing comes out and pushes the trash into the box, and then it closes up again and flies over to the next broken satellite.
Okay.
And I'm like, what? No, that's no, never. What? So what? Like, they're literally saying that there's so much space debris up there that they need to start taking money from the U.S. taxpayer to build space trash men.
Yeah, no, it's more politically correct to call it waste management, I think.
Oh, is that, wait a minute, is that what NASA stands for? Waste management?
Might as well be. Not a space agency as far as I'm concerned, because anytime that we get that footage, like I was talking about, there's never any of this going on. This is what it should look like. But then when they show us the views from the space station, none of this is in sight. Not any
don't you know we're just building our own Oort cloud?
The Oort cloud?
The Oort cloud.
I'm not super familiar now.
Supposed layer of meteorites on the outer edge of our solar system no one's ever seen, but they claim it's really there. They think it's where asteroids come from into our fictional solar system area. So.
It's not the asteroid Stork. That's where they come from.
No, they took off the ST. That's just Oort. It's the Oort cloud.
Got it.
It's silly.
So would you read and just maybe comment?
So if the gravitron does this.
Right.
It's pushes unsuspecting little children against the wall.
Y'all remember the gravity episode where we covered the gravitron? And then the
ISS does this,
which is a circular orbit
around. Now I know shouldn't they be against the wall? So the thing is, talking about the idea, the push and the pull of centrifugal force, right? Yes. So did you, I don't know if you didn't include, but there's an actual geometrical graph that would show if something is flying around a circle, and the point of stability, which in their model would be gravity, that pulling things to the center mass of the Earth's mass, that would be the point of stability. That anything that's floating on the perimeter of that in a circumventing way, it would cause anything to be pulled out to the edge. So, but we don't see that at all. We don't see those forces applied at all, because they say they're just above an atmospheric level where there are no forces like that, but there's still a force of gravity, which is why they have that unspecified, undefined formula that they have to go a certain speed so they don't fall too close to the Earth and don't fly off into the space.
Yeah.
So,
they're in that.
So on one hand, they claim physics is keeping them there. On the other hand, they ignore the actual physics that would apply for them being there under those conditions.
You nailed it. You got it. Yep. That's what I was getting at here, because like you said, that Goldilocks zone where the temperatures, even though the temperatures are hotter than what the alleged elements that this thing is constructed of and composed of, those temperatures should be melting some of these elements. They're just right there in the right zone where that's not affected them. Centrifugal force apparently has disappeared at whatever altitude that's unspecified, as well as the effects of gravity that would be pulling the International Space Station to the Earth and making it crash to the Earth. That is out of the window now because of whatever they figured out. But gravity is just one of the many things that appears to be very selective
it's amazing
in this International Space Station, because you have things just resting on the table. They wanted to make sure y'all knew it looked realistic, in the sense that these people have to eat something, so they have a single slice of orange and a lemon, right. I guess.
Now, and just in case you're wondering what you're seeing right next to the lemon in the bigger picture, all that cellophane, that's things they have wrapped to continue to perpetuate the lie that they have to keep things down or wrapped up or secured, so there's just not random items floating around the interior break room. Mm-hmm. But apparently gravity is an artist, because it just assembled these wonderful fruits and vegetables in a cornucopia for a painting. It's amazing. Right.
You got three guys that looks like floating around upside down, or just up behind the crowd here, and then these items are not affected by the floating around.
It's amazing.
That's 0G, huh?
It's
One
amazing.
other one here. There's a glass of water that you've seen liquids behave the way they do when they say that they're in space and they're floating
Right.
liquid around. It coagulates, and since they're in morphs around, but this one's not. These guys are. You can tell the lady's hairs is kind of up a little bit by their posture. You can tell that they're doing a little bit of floating. They're not just standing perfectly still and rigid, but that good old glass of water. You can zoom in on it on the next slide.
Now, Wes, here's the big question. Do you think these incredibly obvious details that no one paid attention to perpetuate this narrative, do you think that this was done on purpose? This, I think, to me, is the big question, right? Is this them kind of showing their hand a little bit for those who are willing to actually do their homework and pay attention?
If it were only a thing or two like this, then I would be inclined to say I think this was kind of a slip up. Maybe they're just not paying attention. They're being a little lazy. But because of the frequency, the amount of times that they do kind of show their hand in a way, it very much does feel like that they just rub it into people's faces. Like, yeah, we're going to act like we're doing this, knowing that we're lying, but we're going to leave this little hint over here. And partially that can divide the people, that can get some people to say, hey, this is wrong, this can't be right. And then the rest of the people who are just indoctrinated to say, I believe everything they say. Now these two crowds are squabbling. And so that's just one of the many effects that they can have by doing these little things. But
it's amazing.
It's weird.
Now, I mean, to me, it's like, look, if this was real, we already know that this from the jump, the basic narrative is implausible for a variety of reasons. We've already talked about that in some of our first episodes, season 1, episode 1, season 2, episode 1, where we talked about the enclosure of the earth and how the creation was designed. So we understand that none of that as a starting hermeneutic lens, none of this could be possible. So even if we just played pretend and stepped into this fictional story and we started to say, what are the rules of the fictional story? You know what I mean? Like when I open up the book Lord of the Rings, I step into that fictional story and I do not expect to go to Mount Doom and see a hobbit village right next to the volcano. You see what I mean? Because I know that's out of the story's descriptions. So within their story's descriptions of them being able to have a heliocentric model, balls in space, no atmosphere, geosynchronous locked artificial body, 17,500 miles an hour, puffy suit, puffy faced, smiling fake knots who have an open glass of water next to all this electrical equipment.
Exactly.
It is the most nonsensical. Like, all right, so you're telling me super amazing astronauts who had to pass crazy rigorous mental and physical standards, which apparently don't apply to Don Pettit or any of those two bald guys, those twins. But these people had to pass all these rigorous tests to get up there so they can just leave an open container of floating water for all these electrical equipments that their lives depend on.
Right. If they can just do this, what's with all the pouches and the dehydrated astronaut food and the little bottles with the squeeze bottles where they got to be careful to, what's with all that? Why all those safety precautions if you can just have an open glass of water sitting out?
It's just amazing, man.
But, lots of anomalies, especially when you consider that the only way we're familiar with, if you or I were to have the money to go and do one of these experiences like a 0G plane ride, you can get on one of these planes. They do a parabolic flight that we're going to look more at here at a video clip in a second. But we got some footage of that. And then you can see when women get on these things and they're doing in the parabolic flights, as soon as it starts to level off and go back down, you get that weightlessness. And their hair just flows naturally. The women's longer hair is nice and breezy in the air, and it's flowing like it's normal. However, when you look at the female astronauts aboard the International Space Station, and anytime they're so-called in space, you get a much different look. And it's almost as if the women's hair is treated or permed or hairsprayed even to have this specific look. That's a lot more rigid and looks a lot like, you can tell when somebody's hair is harder gelled and hairsprayed rather than untreated. And
maybe it's just dehydrated because they left their water out and it flew away.
Yeah, that's one possibility. But there's one more of these slides here. If we can look at these these hairspray. I almost did a whole video clip because there's lots of this footage out there to kind of examine some of the women's hair, but I figured let's just make some slides. And
this makes me think, like, we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the symbolism of NASA, but this makes me think of an homage to Medusa.
Yeah, I saw somebody saying that recently. Yep.
Yeah.
And especially some of the shorter haired women, right? Their hair is really permed looking and just stuck.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So if people are not familiar, the zero-G planes on the right do the exact same effect of causing your clothes to seemingly fall up because there's no gravity for what can they do? Like 2-3 minutes with the zero-G, and then they have to level the plane out again.
Oh, max. I think, some of the commercially available, it's some like 60 seconds sometimes, but I didn't look into how long
60 seconds is quite a long time, especially if you're splicing together 5, 6, 7 minutes at a time of 60 seconds each. It's quite a long time to perform a fake interview where you're floating around.
Exactly. I would think that, what's commercially available and what you can pay and go experience is not going to be near as, they're not going to have the same capabilities that somebody like a government institution does. If they have a higher altitude plane, they can do longer dips and higher, parabolic flights to where they can have a longer sustained zero-G effect. You know what I mean?
Man. So how, like in modern politics and news, there's a news agency called Project Veritas, and they've done incredible things the past 5 to 7 years where they uncover incredible stories, and they infiltrate certain organizations and get like incredible admissions by going on fake dates with people from Google and Facebook and things like that. So like, if there's anyone listening and you're part of a grassroots media organization that wants to get an incredible story, see if you can become an astronaut. But just be aware. Try to record. Try to somehow record your admissions, because I truly believe they choose the lowest mental common denominator because they know they're the most easily susceptible and easily hypnotizable. These people, when they do these interviews on the ISS, they look absolutely hypnotized.
Deer in the headlights a lot of times. That's right.
Yeah, it's amazing. True. Have you ever been to a live hypnosis show?
I haven't. No.
So when I was a kid, I saw one because I was at public school. I think it was like 6th or 7th grade, and this hypnotist came in and performed for the entire school, elementary, middle, and high school. So all the kids were there. It was a smaller school, so we could fit all the kids in the auditorium at once. It's like 1,200 kids there, and the guy pulled my brother up on stage. My brother was like 16 or 17. Really? Hypnotized my brother amongst all these other kids and had my brother acting like he was a rock star. This was back, this is back in the early 90s. So he had my brother acting like he was a rock star under hypnosis. And I mean, my brother was like, doesn't remember a thing, absolutely acted like he was the lead singer of Kiss and jumping on speakers, singing, acting like an actual concert, right? Like a rock. Right. And so later in my adult life, I went I was on a cruise, and they had a comedian and a stage show, and part of the act they had on the cruise that night, a magician did his thing and hypnotized some people in the audience. And they made one of the people in the audience that got up there on stage think that somebody had their hand on their back and was guiding them around the stage. And there was no one touching them.
Wow.
So that person swears up and down because remember, I should have said they had them blindfolded. So they had the person blindfolded and then said, you feel the hand on your back? And they're like, yeah. Okay, now it's going to lead you across the stage and walk around. And so they were trying to, but this is a stage. Like there's a 7-foot drop off where they could have fallen off and hurt themselves. All types of insurance liability for the cruise ship, right? The person never walked anywhere near the edge of the stage. No danger. This was someone that me and the other person that was on the cruise, we had seen this person. So I knew that it wasn't a plant, basically. Like we'd interacted with that person and knew, like, I don't know them personally, but I just knew that they weren't hired by the magician to be there for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like they were just a genuine participant from the audience that they pulled up, but they hypnotized them to think this. So if people aren't familiar with actual hypnotism, you can hypnotize someone who's mentally susceptible. And how do I say this? Yeah, that's all I'll say.
Hypnotization is real. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a real thing, and people will have full conversations with you like they're awake, like they're in their right mind, but they're not. So they will, like I told you, my brother thought he was a rock star. He's doing everything that he's seen rock stars do, he's doing.
Yeah.
Right. So imagine all you'd have to do with these people that they choose to be a part of this program, whether they're in the know or not, or they're just highly susceptible because they're short bus material. So all they have to do is they have to just show them other interviews of astronauts. Because what do they all do? Oh, everything's great here. We're doing lots of science. Everything's nominal. You know, and they've got this glazed look on their face, right? Because they just have to reenact what they've seen other hypnotized people doing in the past. And then when they get hypnotized, it's okay, now you're an astronaut. We're going to ask you some questions.
That very
it's
well
literally that easy, guys. This is not rocket science. This is not rocket science.
No, exactly.
So yeah, sorry for the delay, brother, but there's just to set the stage, when you look at someone that has hair like this, and you look at them and they're like smiling, and there's that natural tug within a person to say, Sean and Wes, what are you guys talking about? Like, how dare you accuse these people of lying? You don't know these people. You know what I'm saying? And you're sitting there going, bro, if you don't think it's real, please become an undercover journalist and sign up for the program. See if you can get admitted.
If they do think it's real, yeah.
Yeah, if you think it's real. More than likely, if your IQ is over 80, you won't be able to. But if you can if you can get a part of the admissions program and get past the testing and all that stuff, and you can get admitted, try to document it, because otherwise, when you strip away all of the things that are not likely, all the things that are very possible, and all the things that have been outwardly admitted by this agency that was started by Satanists, and you know the practice of Satanists, which is to deceive you, then you know that it's not unlikely and it's not implausible for them to have willing participants whom they can easily hypnotize to do their bidding and say whatever they want. And there's various tricks that we're talking about tonight, how they can perform what we see them doing, and it doesn't require space and anti-gravity.
Well said. Yes, sir. Very, very much so. And so let's look at one of those options that they have as part of the deception. If you'd queue up the 0G planes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep. We're already an hour in. This is going to be 3 hours, maybe. Let's try.
Do you want to do 0G? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Planes. There it is. Thank you, sir.
For the inside of the International Space Station, there are a couple of zero-gravity tricks that they use to fake it. The first is they have a complete mock-up of the International Space Station built on the inside of an airplane. And that airplane does a bunch of rises and falls. It does a upside-down parabolic trajectory, and that simulates zero gravity. The other main way they simulate the zero gravity is with suspension in front of a blue screen. And they use that trick for extended periods of time, for longer than 45-second segments. But they can't move around as much. They can't do the acrobatic flips and rolls in the extended mode. So there's full motion mode where they can fully move around, and that's faked in a plane. And then there's suspended or extended mode where they're suspended by wires in front of a blue screen. They don't move around as much, but they can make the scene last for a longer period of time. The extended mode is much quieter than the full motion mode. In full motion mode, you can actually hear the sound of the jet engines, the engines of the airplane. In every single scene of full motion mode, in every segment of the International Space Station, you can hear this loud sound, the sound of the jet engines. You could argue that it's the air conditioning system. Not even an office air conditioner is that loud. And why is there a loud sound in every segment of the International Space Station? That's because no matter how soundproof you make it, you can't filter out all of the sound of the jet engines. An airplane is just too noisy. You can put noise-cancelling headphones on when you're on a plane, and that doesn't stop the sound from getting through. It muffles it. They also use microphones that don't pick up very far away. If you have a look at this scene here, you can see that when the microphone's in the middle, pointing towards the guy in the middle, you can't hear the sound of jet engines as much, but when the microphone goes to the guy on the side, you can hear the sound of jet engines a bit more. So you can't truly soundproof the inside of the airplane where they fake full motion mode. You can see in this scene from the recent National Geographic documentary Live from Space.
All right, so they've been using wires and harnesses to fool people, right, for decades, but they're getting better at it. They've been using the zero-G planes to fool people for decades, but they're getting better at it. So we got to look at these other little indications and hear, listen, use our senses to observe what they're doing to be able to deduce where the trickery and the deception might be. And so that sound that you'll hear in a lot of the space, or not spacewalks, but during the, in spacewalks too, but during when they're floating around inside the ISS, when they're in that, right, there's two modes this guy talked about. There's free range extended mode, and then there's suspended mode. And I like to be able to visualize it like that, because that really can tell you what they're using to trick the people during that mode of when they're able to free float. And doesn't look like they're having to stand still, because they're not on wires. They're in one of these planes. And so you can hear the plane engines.
Look, yeah, you're right. Like the plane engines were obvious, weren't they? Yeah.
Yep. It has that same squeal, right? The piezoelectric turbo engines on the jets.
Why does $60 million a day engineers have the ISS looking like a junk drawer for an electrician?
It does look like a junk drawer.
Again, they clearly can't get insurance, on the job insurance. Like, look at this.
I almost included one of those slides. Have you ever seen that meme where it's like what you expect from a professional electrician, and everything's real organized, and then you show the ISS and it's just wires everywhere, just like, look at the back. It's just stuff and junk all over the walls, wires hanging and dangling.
Like just like your photo in your green screen, it's just looks insane, just insane. No one would ever design anything like that.
They wouldn't. No.
It's just a hazard for them trying to move around.
Right. But as I was saying, they're getting better with the wires too. So you gotta try to figure out some indications of how you can tell they're on wires when you can't see the wires at all, because they've got some decent graphic designers sometimes, and some computer generated image editors where they can go in and let's pull up and see, some of the slides here. So here's a guy on the left that's clearly on wires. You can see the wires, and he's got his legs up. Now, this is because when you're in a harness right here, it's around your waist and your abdomen area. And so it's more comfortable to naturally bring your legs up a little bit, because you're not getting that same strain on your abdomen. If you have a weak, abs, then it's easier and more comfortable to lift your knees up a little bit. And then your legs will naturally your feet cross just a little bit. And so you see that happening a lot to these guys on the ISS, like Chris Hadfield during that Space Oddity music video. One of the many times that they were doing science on the ISS, but no, not really. They were just playing the guitar doing a music video. Mind control to Major Tom.
And of course, the guitar is well placed, right? Because it would hide the harness itself. So.
True, yeah. But here's a picture where I found somebody that had edited the levels on it. And so on this one, right, this is without the levels changed. This is the natural raw photograph or screenshot of a video piece where this lady is floating through the ISS. And so I'm going to tell you she's on wires, but you can't really see them until you start to change the levels. If you go to the next slide. Now, all of a sudden, you can notice those wires even when you flip back to the original one. But here with the, I forget what this is called, when you just make it kind of black and white into sketch mode, we'll call it.
Like a negative.
Yep, right here above her shoulder. You can see those.
Yep.
And then in the black and white mode, I feel like you can see them best and easiest.
Man, it's amazing.
So they start to pop out. And we got another clip here that will help you to figure out one of those other noticeable things that the person will do to indicate that they're not really in outer space in a zero-G environment. When they're on these wires, they don't have to be. They don't have to be in a zero-G plane to produce this effect of floating, because they can just hang from a harness on wires. And so if you're on the ground, then you're going to have this natural gyroscope equilibrium in your head, right? In your inner ear and part of your brain. You have these things that help keep you balanced and help keep your head upright, because your eyes and your head naturally want to be able to see upright instead of upside down or sideways. And
True.
so, yeah, we're going to see a little bit more in this clip. If you can cue that up.
This one's amazing to me because it's almost as if the flattened triangular nature below his belt is revealing the harness under his pants.
Yeah, they always have to wear a belt too, right? Notice that,
Yeah.
because if it's 0G, then why do you have to have your your pants aren't going to fall down because of so-called gravity?
Yeah.
If there's no gravity where you are, but they always wear these belts pretty tight, and that's part of what's concealing their harness for sure. But if you'll play this clip,
you look like you're in a studio, maybe in Omaha, Nebraska or something. The shot is so clear. Is this a hoax? Are you really in space still?
I don't know. We're going to have to do something for you.
Yeah.
I want to do it.
I know. Oh, yeah, I can do that.
All you have to do is turn yourself and your reference changes. The reason I'm bringing that up is because this is where 4 out of 6 of us sleep. But you can sleep in any orientation. I have it sleeping, feeling like I'm standing up right now, but like you saw, I'm on the floor. But it doesn't matter if I turn over and I sleep upside down. I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down. So I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down. I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down. I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down. I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down. I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down. I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down.
All right. Yeah. So pretty clear to me. The only thing somebody could argue is that they're just, they're intentionally trying to orientate their head to match the camera angle. But I would argue after what we just saw there, especially considering when people are clearly, on Earth and claiming to be on Earth, but they're holding their head a certain way after they're hanging from a wall on wires. It makes sense to me, right? Somebody said, Yakov Natzarim in the chat said, head tilt like at the Roxbury. Like Night at the Roxbury. I like that. Somebody else said, watching it in fast forward reveals the restrictions of the wires. Yeah, and that's another thing I caught, that when you fast forward a lot of these clips, when they're just sitting in suspended mode, right, hanging from the wires, you can see like the swing, like a slow, gradual swing that becomes a lot more apparent when you fast forward the videos. So
interesting.
Yep. But are there ever any experiments performed on the ISS that don't involve playing with water or somersaults or floating around food and stiff hair, right? We definitely saw the Medusa hair in that clip as well from the lady astronaut, but no science is ever really shown to be carried out. Very often we're just bamboozled by irrelevant videos to answer the questions of children and grade schoolers, right? Like this space oddity music video I mentioned, and if you go to the next one, Tim Peake, I think it was being chased around by a fellow astronaut in a gorilla suit. So they spent taxpayer money, allegedly, to fly a gorilla suit up to the guys on the ISS because that was necessary.
Right, because what you want to do in a tight and closed space with all those open wires is put on a suit that takes away whatever
vision,
not just your vision, but your range of motion that you've already adjusted to, and now you don't realize your bigger, fatter hands and fingers in the gorilla suit could possibly grab a wire and rip it out of the wall, and there goes your compression system. Like, this is the dumbest, non-practical. Like, whoever the quote mission commander is, I mean, no, this is fake, guys. This is dumb. There is no logic involved in this. There's no military protocol involved in this. And I know I can see it now. People be like, well, NASA's not a military. Yes, they are. I don't care what. They're literally getting money from the government. They're controlled with the operator of the airspace, the Air Force, National Guard. I don't even know what Space Force's relevant mission operational joint task is with them currently. But NASA started as a government organization, part of the military, formerly part of the Navy, and they are still operating under military control. They have people that are given military rank that's why I mentioned a mission commander. Like this, none of this is normal protocol for any of these fields, any of these government agencies. Anything that you would do, you would never put a guy in a tank trying to operate the close-knit switches and levers in a tank in a gorilla suit and say play around. You would never.
I mean, it's been constantly manned, right, for 25 years almost. So they got to have fun sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Must be. But we can pay close attention to some of the things NASA releases, and every now and then they'll do another little slip and they'll put something in the background. Like here's, was that Nixon, Reagan? I forget who. One of the presidents here has been rolled around.
This is old Bush. This is senior Bush.
Old Bush. This is
CIA, former director of the CIA, potentially part of the Kennedy conspiracy Bush. Like this is a OG
Skull and Bones.
OG Skull and Bones. Yeah, you beat me to it.
Yep.
Yeah. This is 3-2-1 before they had 3-2-2.
Yeah, there you go. Good one. But here in the background is this is Johnson Space Center, and in the background is Tim Peake in front of what's called a blue screen, a chroma key, where it's even got the grid, and that helps them to do the the effects of a green screen, blue screen situation where they can manipulate the background. But Tim Peake is just in there floating things around in front of it.
It's amazing.
The screen in the background. But
and I mean, if you lined up the time, because they've lined up the timestamp of when this photo was taken, when old Bush was being carted through this mission command control floor. Tim Peake was supposed to be on the ISS at that time. So you can't say this was just some sort of training operation they were overseeing, and he was just on the ground inside a NASA facility practicing. No, this was literally a live feed from the unaugmented reality feed, where they are perpetrating the fakeness of the ISS
and space in general. Absolutely. So sometimes, because green screen isn't a perfect technology, right? I've switched off my green screen technology when I do these streams, because the new just augmented background technology they've incorporated to StreamYard is cleaner and doesn't have as many mess ups and splotchiness as the green screen does. So green screens cause problems, and every now and then there's glitches, especially when you're trying to do live. Experienced it personally. And so not only do they incorporate green screen technology, but they also have augmented reality. One of my very first experiences with that was when Pokemon Go first came out. I was hanging out with some little ones that were, I was in a relationship where there were some little ones, and we would play that often. And then there was you
don't have to lie, bro. I don't judge if you played Pokemon Go.
I did. I enjoyed it too at the time. I enjoyed it too at the time. But so there was a mode where you can go into where you can catch the Pokemon or whatever, and then have it on your background, like of you put your camera up in the air, and whatever you're filming, the Pokemon becomes a part of that, right? Google has the same situation with certain animals. They'll try to teach you. You can then turn your camera around in your room and put the animal in your room and make it bigger and stuff. And so that's my first experience with augmented reality, but they're doing different things with it now, where they can then act as if they can insert objects onto a screen and then interact with those objects, and they become interactive for the astronauts to play with. And they're not really there, but they can then appear to be through computer generated imagery. So we got another clip. If you can play that one.
So Pokemon Go is like the double slit experiment of augmented reality.
Yeah.
It's only there when you're looking at it.
Yeah. That's right.
I'm going to show you in this video how NASA faked zero-G without a vomit comet or a zero-G plane. I've been praying about it, and the Lord finally revealed to me one video, and I work with Blender and Unity, and I've been working with special effects software and Photoshop for quite a while now. And when I saw this video, it became instantly clear how they do it. And it's just video game technology. Let's watch.
We have to introduce the concept of free fall. So let's use this model of the Earth. And let's enlist the help of a friend, Patsy. You might know her.
So what is significant about this video is, number one, it was live to school children. Number two, we have this stuffed animal that is transitioning in on another video channel. The actor is able to reach up and grab this doll in real 3D space. The only way you're going to pull that off is with one technology, and that technology is augmented virtual reality. Now, before 2012, NASA used masking techniques much like we do in Photoshop and After Effects. Now we're able to simulate water and objects live in real 3D space. So we're able to take models of things that are photorealistic and rotate and move them while we are going live. Before, we used to have to render these effects frame by frame by frame, and it took extremely long amounts of time. We now have the technology to simulate water, materials, fabrics live in real 3D space. And all augmented virtual reality is taking the objects in 3D space from a virtual reality world and putting them in our world on another screen, which we can see, manipulate, and touch with virtual reality contacts or glasses. I'm going to show you how NASA grabs objects in 3D space, rotates them around, manipulates them. They can do this with water, with cloth, anything. And the cool thing about it is we can take what they're doing, what they're seeing with their contact virtual reality augmented lenses, and put that on a separate video layer live. And then I'm going to show you Microsoft's HoloSense video, their demonstration at E3 a couple years ago, of bringing a virtual reality into our world. And it is simply amazing.
But today, we want to take mixed reality one step further. So we've got something new to show you. Holograms you can hold. This holographic gauntlet is the weapon that Dan will be using while playing Project X-Ray. You'll notice that as he moves his arm, the hologram moves as well. This is a wearable hologram. And when you combine technology like this with the environment understanding of HoloLens, you can do some pretty spectacular things.
In 2012, NASA got tired of faking weightlessness by using the zero-G plane, better known as the vomit comet. So in 2012, they started soliciting companies that specialize in real-time augmented virtual reality so that they can fake weightlessness and floating objects in the air in real time. Simply the cost of the plane and the safety concerns and the fact that they weren't very good at it. They didn't go to Hollywood, which most of Hollywood's effects are post-processing. That's after the video is made. They needed something they can do in real time and make it look realistic. They found a company called Telemetrics. After I researched this, lo and behold, I found out our government has a contract with these people. And Telemetrics, basically what they do is they help news teams, and they're able to create sets, cities, anything you want in a virtual reality world and make it look absolutely 100% real and broadcast live. Here we see Johnson Space Center Telemetrics provided latest camera robotics technology at NASA's government television at Mission Control. Why do you need to fake virtual reality sets at Mission Control and Johnson Space Center? I think we know the answer to that when we saw Tim Peake on the gridded blue screen. So this next segment, I'm going to show you what it looks like when virtual reality being broadcast live doesn't work out so well because the system's not perfect when they actually have a channel shut off that should be on. Because once again, these astronauts are looking in 3D space. They are grabbing objects because they're wearing augmented contact lenses. And if that object's not there broadcast to the viewers live, then it's going to look pretty ridiculous.
We are a visual species, so having things in context makes a big difference. My name's Tom Grubb, and I lead a team that's developing augmented reality and virtual reality applications for NASA's missions to help scientists and engineers do their job better. For training, AR is amazing. You see what's around you, but the computer overlays graphics on top of what you're seeing. The bulk of our work is with virtual reality. We can actually put you inside it. It's very intuitive. This is how I would hold this tool. The scientists, they go out to field sites. We said, hey, with virtual reality, we can take you back out to that site and you can do your science here. It's not going to replace everything. It's another tool in our toolbox. Can you actually fit the part in? People didn't say it, but you almost got the feeling like this is too cool and too fun to actually be work. It is, but you enjoy your work a lot more.
You can tell it's real because it looks so fake, honestly. Like, we'd have way better CGI if it was fake.
There you go. There you go.
Yep, that's absolutely true. I think our special effects are a little bit better up here maybe than in the movie Gravity.
We just use standard toothpaste in space. Squeeze a little on, not too much because you're going to have to clean it up later. Okay, so there's my toothpaste on my toothbrush. It's wet. It's ready to go. It's loaded. Brush my teeth just like normal. Get them all, especially the ones in the back. You should brush your teeth for about as long as you can sing Happy Birthday. That should be long enough. Okay, so now what I'm going to do.
Eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat. Eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat. Once you go flat, you don't go back. Got a bunch of globes back at home up in the trash. I'm not even really tripping if I get laughed at, cause everybody here is about to get flat smacked. Earth is flat, jack, flatter than a flapjack. We about to flat smack, globers get your backpack. I'm with my flat pack, globes in the trash sack. Azimuthal equidistant map up on my snapback. Flat smacking everybody at Joe's Crab Shack. Looking at us like what we're saying is so abstract. Lesson 1, no curvature there to be found. How can it be a ball if nothing about it is round? Lesson 2, 3/4 of the ground is covered in flat water. Do you hear the way that sounds? Lesson 3, take a look at the stars that you see at night. Same constellations that you've been seeing for all your life. And never trust NASA, cause nothing they say is right. They're lying right to our face and they mock us in plain sight. You can straight up see the wires and the green screen glitching. The water bubbles floating on the spacewalk missions. It's detestable. I refuse to be another vegetable. Pseudoscience garbage will to me be unacceptable. And anyone with eyes to see don't have to be susceptible. Dispose of your globe in the nearest waste receptacle. We backpacking all across the plane and we flat smacking activism right out in front of the universe.
Some of those green screen glitches are rough, aren't they? Very telling.
So it's such an easy giveaway. I mean, it's just, great research from the gentleman in that video. And I had actually never seen that type of video, so I'm happy that you found it. Good on
Yeah.
you, brother.
This was
I didn't realize that they had contracts with that company back since 2012. That explains
Right.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And then we have NASA propaganda publications where they straight up admit that NASA's working with augmented reality technologies. And yep, the records are available and out there. Why else would they need to work with these companies?
It's amazing.
But
In fact, you know what? While we were just away and you guys are watching that clip, someone has sent us some undercover footage from the ISS. They apparently are watching this show tonight, and our information is causing a visceral reaction. So this is what they're doing right now.
Oh, Matthew McConaughey, right?
Yeah,
That's who it is.
It's a bad scene up there for him. So
good one. It's crazy. You can straight up see the wires and the green screen glitches. You can even see the water bubbles floating on the spacewalk missions. It's detestable. I refuse to be another vegetable.
That's right. That's right. Oh, you weren't talking about these guys. You were talking about you don't want to be a vegetable.
I don't want to be another vegetable. No.
But
sometimes they'll just release these publications of photographs where it's just like, here's how we do it. Sometimes there's one of the ways that we fake it.
Yeah.
We just.
This is what I was saying earlier, right? It's like, are they just trying to show the people that are willing to see, like, hey, look, we are lying to you, ha ha ha. But what are you gonna do about it?
Right.
Because
otherwise, what they're just
Senate in control.
Yeah. Otherwise, what they're just sitting in a pretend mock-up like Don Pettit on the right, and in a clearly on the ground because the camera crew there isn't outfitted like an astronaut. They're not. They're just in jeans and whatever, and that's clearly on Earth. And they've got the whole set with the lighting and everything, and then the guy on the left just has a screen behind him. And sometimes it's that easy, all right? They're sitting inside of a cockpit or a module with windows, and they're just looking out at a screen inside of a Hollywood set. And so they put
look at the set. I mean, from what you can see of the set with Don Pettit on his right, you've got open containers with stuff in it. Who knows what kind of stuff it is? Probably random hoses from Ace Value Hardware. But look at the German setup on the left. I mean, how stereotypical for Germans, right? Everything's clean engineering,
sterile.
Everything is absolutely immaculate. It's like an Apple iPhone commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a set of Star Trek, like Deep Space Nine or something. It's crazy.
Right. What's funny was with the one on the right, that laptop on the little arm there hanging off the wall. It looks exactly like the setup of when they're pretending to be in space. I've seen
like why, and that's
laptop.
not even in frame in the camera. So why would you go to the extra links to make that as a part of the soundstage for an interview?
Right.
Like, it's just none of it makes any sense.
No, this is clearly the mock-up, one of the mock-ups that they use to pretend. Another one is located in the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, right? They got a desalinated pool, or I'm sure they have more than a few. This is just one of them, because they claim to have a complete entire simulation, a mock-up of the entire design of the International Space Station to do underwater practicing, right? To practice for the missions so that the astronauts can get an idea of what it's like to float. You know what I mean? So Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory is one of the ways that they are faking it.
What
was that?
No, it's amazing. Because it's literally here. They literally have a fake ISS built under there where they practice, and they film them practicing under there, and it just happens to be a huge blue screen. Which, if you know anything about special effects and everything, you use a blue or a green screen in order to take the rendered environment of what you're filming and place it in a different environment. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. But you know what? I have a surprise for you, because we actually found some secret footage of them practicing in this underwater buoyancy lab, and it's right here.
I thought that's what I heard a second ago. I was like, that's Mario. Yep.
Yep. That is exclusive footage you only get on UG.
Those space squids, though. Those squids will come in, and they're just like, they'll get you. Be careful.
Hold your breath. I used to hold my breath at that whole level.
Awesome. Epic. So yeah, there's this is spacewalk mode, right? If you go to the next slide, you'll see
supposedly an
astronaut doing a so-called spacewalk, but obviously he's just in the pool.
Was it 2018 where they had that news report about the astronaut?
There were a few of them. Surprisingly, I thought there was just one. There were at least 2 or 3 astronauts that had water come into their helmet, drowning, things like that. Luckily, nobody's died, right? But this has been happening, and we'll hear part of that.
We don't wish anyone harm. We actually wish that they would come to the truth and get out of the brainwashing, the spell, so that, because ultimately though, a lot of people would ask, and we hear this question all the time. Wes, is they'll ask why. How could all these people be in on a lie? Well, for one, they're not all in on a lie. There's a ton of people that train in this buoyancy lab. As far as there's divers behind them. Those guys are paid divers. They're probably real marine divers. This guy that's training right here may never have went to space. I don't even know his name, can't see his face. But the point is, there's a ton of these people that never actually, quote unquote, go to space. There's only a very select few. So even if those people are not absolutely hypnotized and they believe, or they are fully conscious and aware of the lie that they're perpetrating, I think there's like an innocence, an innocent ignorance in the common person that thinks that that the average person cannot be bought to do something unscrupulous or immoral for money. Like, it's like they just kind of forget about the age-old thing about everyone has a price.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like a lot of people have a price, and they will absolutely, especially if they bring them in through a secret society where they already have inflated their ego to make them think that they are better. They're better than all the unwashed masses, right? Like, it's literally part of the brainwashing of the secret societies. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility to have a very small amount of people, which if you look at the people that are supposedly have gone to space or involved in these high level operations within this massive shenanigan of a fraudulent tax theft, then you'll see it's not a lot of people to pay off. It's not a lot of people to hypnotize.
I've noticed too, they frequently will reuse a lot of the same characters, actors to play these parts, right? You got Tim Peake, you got Scott Kelly, you got Chris Hadfield, you got a lot of the same faces used over and over again so that they don't have to incorporate more people into the lie.
Bro, when I was a kid, I used to go to this summer camp, and this is not a long story. I used to go to this summer camp, and we would take this 7-hour bus ride. It felt like 7 hours to go to this summer camp. And the guy, I remember the last time I went, the chaperone, the guy that was with us, on the way back, he told all the kids on the bus, "Hey guys, we got a surprise for you. We're not," because all the kids were complaining about the long bus ride home. They had a great time at camp for the whole week. And he's like, "Hey guys, hey kids, we got a surprise for you. We're actually going to take you to the airport nearby. We're going to take a plane back home." Now, I'm like 11 years old. I don't know anything about local airports. I have no clue that there's not a flight back to this little town. And there's no, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. The guy was absolutely pulling our leg. Every little kid on the bus believed it. You know what I mean? And we're sitting there talking about how excited we are, what seat we're going to sit on the plane, and what we're going to ask the captain, and we're all excited to get to the airport, get on this little plane. And 5 hours later, we're still not on a plane. He's just laughing, right? Because we all believed him, right?
Yeah.
So, how interesting is it? Like, you can literally just tell these people, hey, all this stuff. You have one of two choices. One, we disappear you and everyone you love. Two, we pay you a whole bunch of money to do this for us. And when the new world is ushered in, you'll have a place at the top and be protected.
That's what we talked about in, what was it, 2 episodes ago now, where we discussed the Challenger hoax, that not all these people might have just been paid and bought off and coerced and bribed into this. They may have also been under threat of duress.
Yeah.
That's a strong possibility too, when they entered into these positions to deceive.
Yeah. So, and that's, again, I hope that people understand out there that very small percentage of the actual people involved in all these projects, right? All the people that make the parts for this and that, the divers in the background that are there to catch these guys in case something goes wrong and take them to the surface, everything involved. The guy taking the picture for this, everything involved. Those are legit people that have real jobs. Probably they're never going to get to the high levels to actually go on a mission. So they just think I got a nice contract job with NASA, I'm getting paid well to go and hang out in the background and make sure this guy doesn't drown. Like,
right, exactly.
He's
And-
legit. Like he doesn't have to be a mass conspiracy. It
No.
literally just has to be compartmentalization with a few need to know at the very top. Oh, have you ever heard of the military? It's all compartmentalization with
Right.
need to know at the top.
Yep.
So like it's all works in their favor. Yeah.
Know what you need to know when you need to know it. That's right. That's how they do things. Somebody reminded us in the chat earlier, it was Joe that said that our battle and our struggle is not against these NASA astronauts, right? Ephesians 6, not against flesh and blood. It's against the powers and principalities that are, affecting and deceiving and controlling these people.
Yeah. And there's another comment we have from Illiterate No Globe, and he says it's literally like vampire familiars in the movie Blade. If you guys aren't familiar, that's a deep cut pop culture reference, but yes, and a lot of those vampire movies, there's always the regular humans that get caught up with the wealth and the elitism of the vampires that want to help them because they think they'll be protected. Like it's literally a common narrative in the storyline, until they have square-faced babies, like in what's it called? What was that movie called? The horrible movie with the vampires and the werewolves and Twilight, in the Twilight movies.
Okay,
yeah.
Twilight. There you go.
Clearly, I didn't watch him, but that's not the point. So, do you want me to play this other clip?
Yeah, if you would, please. Okay. Right. Let's look at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, the bubbles in space, hashtag bubbles in space. That's a big one. Lots of people are noticing these things because there's a lot of these clips. Let's check it out.
Imagine if the federal government gave $19.5 billion to Hollywood. I think we'd all be pretty upset by this. Well, there is a growing body of evidence that the International Space Station is not in outer space, but it's being filmed in a desalinated pool down here on Earth, and it's being falsely misrepresented. And this started with this phenomenon known as bubbles in space. If you search for it, you'll see many of these so-called spacewalks, which have been falsely misrepresented as live, as has been exposed many times on Facebook when they do their live ISS feeds. Bubbles out in space. Well, there's not supposed to be water up there. And it is known that the astronauts do train in these big underwater tanks. And so this body of evidence, and it's not just bubbles in space, there are harnesses or green screens, evidence of flights that are actually on parabolic flights, not in space. And if this is true, it's a big deal, because that's a lot of money that could be used for our own infrastructure or schools, whatever. So I'm drawing the attention to it because I think it's something that deserves to be looked at. Because if it's true, these bubbles in space might represent the smoking gun in probably the biggest hoax since global warming.
Fellow astronauts Thomas Reiter and Dan Tanney's office is the pool at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. At over 200 feet long and 40 feet deep, this pool takes over a month to fill and contains full-size replicas of the space station components. It simulates as close to a spacewalk experience as is possible on Earth. It also gives the astronauts the opportunity to practice and rehearse difficult maintenance tasks on the replica, immersed in over 6 million gallons of water.
The International Space Station has taken an unexpected turn. The astronauts doing the spacewalks will now be wearing snorkels after the last astronaut who performed a spacewalk nearly drowned when his helmet filled with water. Let's get to...
But just my gut inside me said, that's my dive buddy, and I should be with my dive buddy. That's my dive buddy, and I should be with my dive buddy.
But the last spacewalk ended with Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano nearly drowning in his helmet after it started filling with water.
Water is in his eyes now, and it seems to be increasing.
Fellow astronauts quickly pulled him back into the station. When they did, water poured from the helmet.
Okay, guys, so we're working right now for Tim Copra. We know it's a small amount of water. We already got the location and the quantity. If there's any way to get a temperature of the water, I don't know if you can move it around to get to that, or to try to drink it and note the taste.
Tim Copra reporting a small amount of water inside the helmet.
The water's cold. The secondary water now. About half-inch wide, about 2 inches long.
Many times during spacewalks outside the International Space Station, we can see air bubbles rising up. Can you touch on how there are air bubbles in space?
Can
Can you be more specific? Air bubbles?
So yeah, like a lot of times during the footage, the NASA footage, you can see bubbles coming up out of the helmets or kind of from underneath you. How do you explain bubbles in space?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. You might, now sometimes you get water in the helmet, and it's either you know, from sweat or from the cooling garments. And you know, in some of my spacewalks, I had like water in the helmet, not like I was going to drown in the helmet, but just little bits of water probably came from sweat. Often on the outside of the space station, you'll liberate little pieces of, you know, it's a really harsh environment out there, and the outside of the space station gets beat up pretty good. And sometimes, you know, you'll see just little flecks of paint or something that you might have disrupted floating away from the suit. And, you know, that's generally what that is. I've never seen any kind of air bubble anywhere.
Yeah. Could it be that you're filming in an underwater pool and you're not really out there?
You got us.
All right, well, I just encourage everyone to look up Bubbles in Space, #BubblesInSpace. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You spent $45 to sit there.
I got him free.
So that was only because I'm a very good actor. I think I should be nominated for an Academy Award.
Hey, how you doing? How's Bubbles in Space doing? How's what? Bubbles in Space.
Bubbles in space?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
No? You Mr. Kelly?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You don't remember the question from Tampa about the bubbles in space coming up from the helmets?
No.
Yeah, you guys are in an underwater pool, remember? We know.
Dave Williams about to move out of the Quest airlock. Those particles that you see emanating from the airlock is said by the EVA officer Paul Boehm in Mission Control to be particles of water from the crew's sublimators on their spacesuits.
There you go. A little bit there. Okay.
Looks like a scuba suit. Ah. That's a dive suit. There you have it.
Did you notice how that Scott Kelly guy, when the guy in the crowd first asked him, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But then like 5 sentences later, he's like, that's what that is. Paint flecks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's okay. Harsh environment, chipping away paint. That does this and then slowly does this.
Right.
And
They'll
then
curve.
this.
Yeah, exactly.
Bro.
They're moving like bubbles rather than
Yeah.
something that was, you know, shot off in space and contained, you know, remains and retains that inertia to where it's supposed to just go straight out in space.
Or why would it? I mean, it flecked off. Why wouldn't it just continue traveling with no friction, right? Because you're not in actual atmosphere. What would project it? What would propel it to go any direction? Why wouldn't it just hover above the surface of the thing and continue traveling with it?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like none of it makes any
Solar winds, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Astronaut winds is what we'll call that.
17,500 miles per hour. Maybe that can create like a cyclone vortex in the non-existent vacuum of space. So things like that. I just love how he started, you know, like fidgeting with his hands and stuttering and stumbling over his words a little bit more when he was asked that too. And then, after like you said, didn't know what he was talking about, and then suddenly could come up with an explanation. All of a sudden.
Did you see the guy in the stool on stage next to him that was probably interviewing him before the live Q&A?
I might not have caught it.
And when Scott Kelly first asked the question, and he goes, "Could you be more specific?" Because the question was very easily discerned and understood. And the guy on stage was like, "Like what? What do you mean be more specific?" Like everyone understood that question. Like what? Yeah.
And then one of the last clips there, that was a NASA live stream or whatever that was being broadcasted, and the TV announcer or their announcer that they have in house usually, right, was describing water molecules coming out of an air vent, and that was before the time of Scott Kelly. So, you know,
what we need, West Blaze, is we need to get primetime 99 Alex Stein on the grind to go to these city council meetings and do the exact same thing that guy did 10, 15 years ago about space bubbles and say, here's my 2 minutes and I want my tax money back because I saw some bubbles in space and I realized they're in an underwater buoyancy lab and they're not actually there. Like, or maybe he can make a nice rap for it.
He tries, but sorry.
On the grind, he tries.
He freestyles though.
Maybe you can collab with him, brother. You can give him some actual cadence.
Hey, he's blown up, hadn't that guy?
I know.
Since he's been on your show, he's now
I
been
know.
on like mainstream media, news stations, and all kinds of things featured for his shenanigans. Funny stuff.
Yeah, we got to get him on the Space Bubbles city council testimonies. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah. But
so ultimately, we've got these varying pictures, right, of the ISS itself.
Yeah. So these are kind of claimed to be amateur photographers, right? But sometimes you're looking at these amateur photographers and they're not exactly matching up. I can just see from just these views here that the length of the solar panels doesn't seem to remain consistent.
No.
The length of the body, right? The segments that form the longer, skinnier middle portion of the ISS doesn't seem to remain consistent either.
Yeah, those top two pictures, I mean, you can clearly see the aircraft.
How about that? An aircraft. Is that maybe what we're seeing or what people are seeing? Could very well be. We'll look at some more information on that here pretty quick. But if you go to the next slide, there's some interesting things that images of the ISS said to be taken through an amateur's telescope cannot be differentiated from those that are known to be fake. So some of them have been, exposed through photoforensics, looking at the different, adjusting the levels on the image and noticing some anomalies that would very much indicate fakery. But amateur astronomy, I mentioned this earlier, that forum members of amateur astrophotographers are in awe of those handful of other amateurs, quote unquote, that are able to capture such clear pictures of the ISS, whereas all they can capture are glowing white hot orbs, if they're lucky enough to track it at all. Over half of all lucky amateurs, lucky, right, researched had very strong connections to the space media and official space organizations. So the guys that released the photographs of like the transits in front of the sun or the moon, or some of the clearer pictures, you start to research and look into these photographers, and all of a sudden you find a majority of them seem to have strong connections to space agencies and their media that are affiliated.
Amazing.
How about that? But I want to remind you guys that white hot glow is something that we talked about. Now, I'm not saying this is guaranteed definitely one of the tactics they're using, but this is something to consider. We talked about this last season in the segment that you did on Vimanas and the ancient flying machines of ancient Babylon, right? Yeah. That the Vimanas of ancient India had certain capabilities to cloak and disguise themselves. And can you read this?
Yeah. This is an actual technique of ancient Vimanas found from translated Sanskrit. Professors from the International Academy of Sanskrit Research. This is from 1973. They translated some ancient Vedic writings, and they were part of the Aeronautical Society of India. And what they said was this is a technique by one of the Vimanas. It's called the Drishya, which is by collision of the electric power and wind power in the atmosphere. A glow is created whose reflection is to be caught in the Vishwa Krira Drapana, or is basically a mirror, at the front of the Vimana. The flying craft is called the Vimana. And so basically they put mirrors at the front. This creates like a bright, brilliant glow or a sheen that then is manipulated to camouflage the entire craft. Okay. This is an actual technique documented by the ancient Indians for their ancient flying machines.
Right. So Zealot said, dang Vimanas, I knew it. Yeah. It's very possible. So what we're actually seeing, from the ground when there's an orbit or a transit, because it's every 90 minutes, they say, and, there's certain windows of time over certain locations where people are able to then see with the naked eye, maybe a light in the sky, or zoom in and see something that, if they're able to capture anything at all, just looks like a blurry white, bright light.
Yeah.
Which, that's one of the capabilities of the ancient flying machines of Babylon. And here's a good looking, what is this, a hieroglyph kind of?
Yeah, from a Sumeria.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, an Assyrian king flying in a Vimana in the air.
Isn't that interesting that the wings on it are very rectangular and have these segments on it, very much looking like the solar panels of the so-called ISS.
Oh, there's a lot of like we talked about. We were going to talk about symbolism. There's a ton of symbolism with what NASA's doing and how they shape their crafts, how they shape the stage show that they present, not just with the moon capsules or the astronaut capsules on the tops of rockets, which look just like ancient Vimanas. But if you actually have, no one, of course, knows who took this picture of the ISS.
Right.
But on the left, you have an official photo of the ISS, guys. And it looks exactly like the famous pose of the idol Isis from ancient Egypt. Now, why is this significant? Because she was called the Queen of Heaven in the book of Jeremiah. And this is commonly known as, literally Isis, the sister and wife of the ancient Nimrod, whom is called Apollo.
And isn't another one of her names Artemis?
And yes, to the Greeks, she was also called Artemis.
Which is the name of the new lunar missions. Yeah, that NASA is undergoing right now. They were supposed to have already launched the Artemis this week, but they've delayed it now to Friday is when they're talking about launching it. It's not going to be a manned mission, but yeah, they're restarting the moon missions up, and they eventually hope to go and colonize the moon and set up shop permanently up there. And that's going to be great. But y'all stay tuned for I believe our next episode will be covering the moon missions.
Yeah,
absolutely. So it could be a Vimana. It could be the same kind of technology that the Vimanas were using in ancient Indian and Babylonian practices that are just employed now on a government aircraft of any kind of aircraft. Really, they could be using that same kind of glowing camouflage technology to make it appear as something that it's not, or just to give off the illusion of a something flying up there.
Yeah. It's there's so many techniques that they can use, both from the past and from modern day. Like we've been exposing tonight, from the modern times with modern tech, and all of it. Like, okay, so we just read that Drishaya, which is that move of the Vimana to take the mirror, reflect the light, camouflage it in the light, and this is somehow manipulated through the electrical power of the Vimana plus the wind. But ultimately, think about what does a magician use for a stage show? He uses mirrors to create illusions.
A lot of times,
right?
Mm-hmm.
What are we using with the lenses of these films, creating the green screens? I mean, these are just illusions. These are advanced magician stage shows, guys. This is what the occult has been famous for since the BC era. They've been famous for their priesthood of their false religion to present through art, trickery, through magic. I mean, it's literally Isaiah 47. Ancient Babylon has labored in sorcery since its youth.
How about that?
Yeah.
It also reminds me of like the holographic technology that they've advanced really well, I think, to be able to put artists on stage, right? They've had Tupac, Michael Jackson appearing on stage to where it's almost indiscernible from reality, the way they're able to do it. And so then there's also something known as Project Bluebeam, where the government has worked with high-powered holographic technology and projector technology to be able to, they could not even really have anything actually up there, but also just be projecting it from another aircraft or from the ground, maybe even just projecting a light show up there.
Well, I know it wasn't on this, it wasn't on us because we haven't covered SpaceX yet, but there's actual good video evidence that some of the SpaceX launches are literal holographic projections.
I would not doubt it.
David Weiss claims that he actually has an actual video clip where they were able to zoom in and see the actual projectors around the launch pad and find the logo of the company and research it and figured out it was an actual projection company.
Oh, wow. So I would not doubt it. Yeah, as many times as they use cartoons and computer generated imagery and just like balloons, right? They'll have a blimp shaped like a rocket. And so they're looking for any way and chance that they can to be better at faking the whole situation.
Yeah. That's the crazy part. So a magician will have multiple ways to do a trick. And 9 times out of 10, a good magician is also an incredibly brilliant engineer, that he can create that magic penny that folds over, and so you think that something's going through it, or whatever little devices he has to make. He's an engineer, because he's actually creating a physical, practical prop that he can do with the stage show. And so, like, that's now what can Siegfried and Roy do with $60 million a day? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's all this is, because we know that the physics doesn't line up. We've reviewed that on many shows. The theology, the observable reality, and science, the atmospheric pressure, the gases, the basic chemistry doesn't line up. So it's like, yeah, we're watching a stage show, guys. I can't say it any more plainer than that. You know?
We truly are. Yes, sir. So I just want to look into, let's real quick check out the U.S. federal law, 47 CFR section 25.103, where you'll find some interesting definitions that, according to U.S. federal law, this is how they define these words. So maybe we're looking at some of the legalese, right? The legal jargon language that they'll use as loopholes to kind of protect themselves a little bit, maybe, right? So spacecraft is defined, according to U.S. federal law, a man-made vehicle which is intended to go beyond the major portion of the Earth's atmosphere. Also, would you read space station?
It's a station located on an object which is intended to go beyond, or has been beyond, the major portion of the Earth's atmosphere.
So twice now in these definitions, beyond the major portion of the Earth's atmosphere. And I found that description rather vague. It could easily be defined and identified with an exact altitude, like above 100 miles or something like that. But
the whole which is intended is super suspicious.
It is. Yeah, intended. Exactly. So I couldn't find personally any federal regulation explaining what those words mean in regards to the major portion of the Earth's atmosphere. And the best answer, official answer that I could find is as follows. If you go to the next slide, because that's rather vague, but the atmosphere has a mass of about 5.15 times 10 to the 18th power kilograms, 3/4 of which is within about 6.8 miles, which is only 36,000 feet off the surface. 3/4 of the Earth's atmosphere is allegedly contained within 36,000 feet. That's cruising altitude, just around for commercial airlines, right? The atmosphere becomes thinner with increasing altitude, with no definite boundary between the atmosphere and outer space. That's how much more vague could you get? Where does space start? It's not really definite. But this is according to the chemists and physicists, right? The Handbook of Chemistry and Physics by D. Light in 1996. And I find that interesting. So according then to the U.S. federal law and their definitions for a spacecraft and a space station, then any commercial airplane, any airline, or any independent airplane that can go above 30,000 feet, really, I mean, if the majority of the Earth's atmosphere beyond that point is now a spacecraft or a space station, then really you only have to go about 20,000 feet before you're above the majority of the Earth's atmosphere. And now you're
all the satellites they've attached to balloons, which we've already covered a couple episodes.
They go 100,000 feet.
100,000 feet, then they can confidently and legally on camera say to the Senate Appropriations Committee, yeah, we spent $20 million or $2 billion last year launching satellites into space.
Yeah, spacecrafts and space stations. Yep, silly. Yeah, if you have a station aboard an airplane, then that's a space station.
There you go. That's what that's intended. Star Lab.
Right. Yep. As long as it's intended or can or has gone above.
Still sitting on the ground in a secret base in Nevada, but it's intended to go.
There you go. That's a space station according to their own definitions. It's like looking at the Black's Law Dictionary to see what they go by, because oftentimes these words to them don't mean the same thing as we understand them to be. But are you able to
legal semantics?
That's right. So I was looking into the U-2 spy plane, and I found some interesting things that could pose as an explanation for what we're seeing up there, or it could be part of the deception, because it's a product of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, which that sounds familiar. I don't know if you're familiar with the moon landings that we'll talk about soon, but that was basically a product of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. This reaches speeds of over 500 miles per hour, the U-2 spy plane does. The Lockheed Corporation, Lockheed Martin, right, originally proposed the U-2 in 1953. It was approved in 54, and its first test flight was in 55. And in a test flight on August 8th, 55, the U-2 reached 32,000 feet. By August 16th, just 8 days later, the prototype flew 52,000 feet, an altitude never before reached in sustained flight. And by September 8th, it reached 65,000 feet. They're saying that now these planes and the planes that they've developed based off of the U-2 can go upwards of 70,000 feet altitude. So
I lost it, but a few years ago, I used to have a clip of an actual military test flight. It was supposed to be like 71,000 feet or something like that. And you can see the cockpit behind the guy. The horizon's flat. It's flat as a board.
Yep. Yeah. There's one from Operation High Shot is what they called it. And this was from the University of Queensland, where they sent up a rocket and then launched a plane from the rocket.
Yeah.
And they claim to have been at 900,000 feet, which I don't even know if that's true. 900,000 feet.
Interesting.
They
What would
claim
the
to be
plane
in perfectly flat level horizon for the whole
that's
show.
twice the distance of the ISS, right?
Oh,
3 times?
Well, no, they say that the ISS is at about a little over 1 million feet.
Okay, so then over 200 miles up. I'm just trying to wonder at that layer in their model, in their fictional model, what would create the Bernoulli effect with the wings of the plane? What atmosphere would actually bring lift to it, no matter how much thrust it had?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Because they say it gets thinner and thinner the higher they go. There was
Yeah.
one more bullet point on this slide. A committee of Army, Navy, U.S. Air Force, CIA, NSA, and State Department representatives created lists of priority targets for U2 and other intelligence gathering methods. Right. This was in the late 50s, early 60s. And look at all of those ABC organizations.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the major government organizations here were involved in getting the U2s and developing that program. So fascinating stuff. You know, with the approval, one more thing, with the approval of the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, right, their director, Hugh Dryden, Bissell's team at the CIA developed a cover story for the U2 that described the aircraft as used by NACA for high altitude weather research. And the cover story would be used if the aircraft were ever lost over hostile territory. But that same weather cover story led to the disaster that followed in the May 1960 U2 loss. Remember, one of them was shot down.
Supposedly by Russia. Yeah, they shot him down.
The enemy was not buying the cover story. So it's interesting, though, that the government, government affiliated agencies have involved the U2 with a conspiracy and a cover up of some sort. So would you read here?
So this is a patch for the U2 Dragon Lady. By January 1956, the U2 had so impressed the United States Air Force that it decided to obtain its own aircraft. The U.S. Air Force purchased a total of 31 U2s through the CIA. I don't know why they have to go through the CIA to purchase them. We could maybe do a whole show on the legalities of the CIA and how they're controlled by the Pope. The transaction's code name, which is Project Dragon Lady, was the origin of the aircraft's nickname.
How about that? Dragon Lady. So things potentially involving and affiliated with the International Space Station, having the name Dragon involved with it. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? And look at this patch real quick, right? In God we trust, all others we monitor.
Yeah.
Because
something tells me the God that they're referencing isn't the one that we would reference.
Especially with this evil looking dragon. Look at his face. It's scary looking. But if you go to the next slide, we'll get that reminder of, nope, there it is. Dragon, also known as Dragon 1 or Cargo Dragon, was a class of partially reusable cargo spacecraft developed by SpaceX to resupply the International Space Station. They're calling that Dragon. What if they're just on their way up to the Dragon Lady? Or in reality, what if all of this, it doesn't take a trained eye to look at this and see that that's animation, that's cartoon, that's not that wasn't actual at all. But if you go to the NASA website or NASA's YouTube and look at the live stream that they had where the Dragon was docking with the International Space Station, it's the same thing. It doesn't look any different than this animation.
Right. It's just okay. So there's a ton of things wrong with this image right off the bat. If this is an official image, for one would be the lens flare, but two, because this isn't a Star Trek movie. But two, it's the actual lighting on the space module. So you see the module about to dock in center mass of the screen. So any photographer would understand this as well. If you have one point of light and you're not within an atmosphere that reflects light like we have in our current atmosphere, you do not have, so the point of light, obviously the sun is top left of this photo, out of frame, coming down at an angle from the top left onto this module. So that means the other half of this module should be like fairly dark, completely dark almost. So, but you have it really well lit. This is it's 50% lumen.
Yeah.
Right. If 100% is the hottest, brightest, whitest spot where the sun is supposedly on it, the other side should not be at 50%. It should be extremely dark, barely visible, because there's no light off any atmosphere to reflect to create ambient light. You only have one point source of light. The reason why we have a dome over us and a sun shining through it, hitting not just the atmosphere, but also reflecting off the rest of the dome, it creates ambient light.
That's right.
So this is why if you're at night, go outside. If it's nighttime, take your phone flashlight and have someone walk in front of you, and you shine your phone flashlight on them. The front of them is completely dark. The back of them is lit up, and it's one point source of light. So you don't have this type of ambient light in space if you just have one shining solar light coming in. So there's a ton of easy, demonstrable ways to show that this is just animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easily. Yep. And I just thought it was, strangely coincidental. If they called the original U2 program the Dragon Lady Project.
Yeah.
And considering that picture you showed of Isis looking like she's got wings.
That's right.
And so Dragon Lady could be.
Apollo flew through the sky, and Apollo was subservient underneath Zeus, whom, if you take it to the Egyptians and you put it in that pantheon, you'd have Osiris, who was the equivalent of Apollo,
underneath Ra,
subservient to Ra, who was considered the actual serpent that they worshipped, and also considered the dragon. Yep. So in the Canaanite religions, Baal was the god underneath the actual dragon. And so there's they're showing their homage to the pantheon that they worship.
Absolutely. And for anybody unfamiliar with some of these concepts, definitely got to recommend one more time, go check out Kingdom Cast or Kingdom in Context, Investigating Babylon. Sean Griffin here has done an excellent job, thorough examination of those kind of concepts. And you'll even see a whole episode on ancient flying machines, which blew my mind. 4,000-year-old flying machines, well before the modern invention, so-called, of modern flight.
Yeah.
But go ahead and read this one if you would, please.
So this is another example of a modern U2. It's the NASA operates 2 Lockheed ER-2 Earth Resource aircraft, a variant of the U-2, and has flying laboratories in the Airborne Space Program under the agency's Science Mission Directorate.
How about that? So they say this is the ER-2 variant of the U-2s, and they call it a flying laboratory.
Oh, so not only are they still making the U-2s, they're making modern versions that have augmented uses. Yes. So we're thinking that it's impossible for them to be flying at 75,000 feet with augmented wings that look like the spacecraft.
They're awfully skinny with a very wide wingspan, and could very easily be modified to look like what we see the ISS to look like, or have a projection around it that makes it look like that, because it's already got the basic frame, right?
Because the laws of science, as far as angular perspective and how our eyes work, tell us that if it was truly 250 miles away, we couldn't zoom in on it and see it. So it has to be within our scope that we can actually see flying by. And when supposedly it's been caught transiting the moon, even if that's a real photo, it's not going 17,000 miles an hour.
No.
So how fast were these supposed to go? 500 miles an hour?
Yeah, over 500.
Over 500.
When it comes to certain, what's the word? They're classified information. They might not tell you the exact speed that it can go up to, but they'll tell you it can reach 500 miles per hour.
Yeah, Yakov Natsrim in the chat, he said drones are getting bigger too, and this is something I've always theorized, is that it's just they don't even need manned missions of these things anymore.
And
they
don't
probably
even
haven't needed it for decades.
No, exactly. They don't even need to stop to refuel anymore with solar technology and other ways that they've developed. They can leave things flying for years. There's other reports that say that they do that with military drones and vehicles.
Wes, are you suggesting jet fuel hoax?
I don't know. Some interesting stuff with that, though. But the ER-2, NASA's derivative of the U-2, right, operates at altitudes from 20,000 feet to 70,000 feet, which is above 99% of the Earth's atmosphere. How about that? Doesn't that match that definition of a spacecraft, space station, U.S. federal law gives? The ER-2 reaches an initial cruise altitude of 60,000 feet within 20 minutes. So that's pretty quick. It could get up that high, which is significantly higher than the average aircraft flies in that span of time, which is very fast.
That's an impressive plane.
So if they ever needed to, down or land, whatever, if it is an airplane flying up there that's posing as the ISS, they can get that done within an hour. And all they have to say is, oh, it's over a remote part of the ocean where nobody can see it. Things like that. Would you read what Air Force Magazine has to say here?
In February 2020, the U.S. Air Force submitted budget documents with confusing language suggesting that it could begin retiring U-2s in 2025, but clarified afterwards that no retirement is planned.
It could begin retiring in 2025, but it's not planned. And it's confusing language. Even Air Force Magazine says this about what the Air Force has said. So there's that. That sounds familiar because there's some reports that say the International Space Station may lose direct funding after 2025. How about that?
Yeah. This is something that our friends over at Globebusters have been talking about for about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
Is that they've been, or maybe 2 years, they've been theorizing that that's how they're going to phase this out. It's either going to crash, it's going to lose altitudes, engine failure or something, whatever, pressurized failure, and it's going to actually crash, or they'll just defund it and let it just float away.
That's right. Yep.
In their narrative.
Exactly. Yeah. Other reports are saying that 2030 they intend to retire the space station and crash it in Point Nemo in the ocean, right? Some reports are saying that, especially since the Ukraine-Russian conflict, there's been reports of the Russian astronauts aboard there talking about jettisoning their segment, and their segment just so happens to be for course correction.
Right. That's what I was asking earlier about the Soyuz and about how do they speed up or slow down depending on how much weight gets on there. Yeah.
It never gets talked about, but there is some information out there and some cartoons they've released to show little rockets on a module that will then help correct their course, and they use that to avoid all the space debris and the things.
It's supposedly air. It's not actual rockets. I've seen the NASA.gov website, and they say they have the course correcting air, the compressed air. What's it called? I don't know. But it's little air shoots, that would shoot it out, right?
Pneumatic.
And I'm sitting there going, you're trying to tell me 800,000 pounds and you got those little things are going to steer it. And okay, so let's just say that all this was real, and that they could, because of the reduced atmosphere and therefore the reduced weight, they could steer it with just little air steering nodules that are on the sides of certain parts of the compartments, because they need to avoid a rogue satellite that's out of commission and damaged, or maybe an asteroid come in or a meteorite or something, even though they fly in at 400,000 miles an hour and they can never course correct in time. But let's just say that was possible. That still doesn't explain how can they can actually have the fuel and the speed to speed up. The Soyuz was supposed to be a massive Russian rocket from the 1960s, whom by itself would need hundreds of thousands of pounds of fuel to propel. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, Wes. Have you seen any updated reports that NASA took a new modern engine with solid state rocket fuel to replace the old 1960 Soyuz rocket, so they could update this and not have to bring up literally 500,000 pounds of rocket fuel so they can maintain the speed they need and not crash?
I haven't personally seen it, no.
There's so many problems with this. It literally is a narrative sold to children.
Yeah.
And once you step into your adult brain, it's right to ask some critical questions.
We should. Yeah. We absolutely should. I hope this has caused some people to do so. But
here's an amazing critical question you got on screen here.
That's right. So if we've made it through this whole episode, and you've made it through other episodes of ours, you're still not convinced of what we're saying is the biblical creation model. After this episode, you're still not convinced that the ISS isn't really what they say it is, and it's up there. Let's just say it's still up there by the time that the New Jerusalem comes down, which could not land on a globe. Go check out episode 24, That Kingdom Come, where we looked at that. But if it were still up there when the New Jerusalem comes down, New Jerusalem stands 1,500 miles off the ground and 1,500 miles wide, right? The largest structure that will ever have existed on the earth, visible from all of the earth. And it's super high. We'll see a scale here in a second, but the supposed International Space Station is only at 249 miles off the ground. So eventually it's going to collide smack dead into the side of the New Jerusalem. But we're here to tell you, it's nothing what they say it is. It's not up there like they say it is. It's definitely not going to be there when the New Jerusalem comes down.
There's nothing up there. But
yeah, that's right. Here's a scale here for a comparison, right? Mount Everest is actually not even to scale. It's a little bigger because it should only be at 5.5 miles, but I still had to try to include a spec to fit it on here. But there's the ISS next to it, and the New Jerusalem standing towering over next to it.
Hallelujah.
And that is the promised land. Yeah, that is the continent-sized kingdom that belongs to the resurrected saints. And that's where we're headed to. in faith and belief. And so the highest heavens, Psalm 115:16 says, the highest heavens belong to the Lord, but the earth he has given to mankind. So it's never intended for mankind to dwell in the heavens, or to have a station in the heavens, or to have a place there at all in any kind of way. The kingdom of heaven is coming down to earth.
Father, that's the wonderful promise of the end of the story, is the Father and the Son are bringing their house down to live with us. And as this wonderful verse here, Psalm 115:116, is actually paralleled in 1 Enoch chapter 15, where Yahweh is having the angels inform Enoch that mankind was created from the earth and he's supposed to live on the earth. Right. Angels are created to live in the layers of heaven above, and that's where they're supposed to live. So everything has a place, everything has a purpose, and everything has its ultimate fulfillment in that place, abiding in that purpose.
Absolutely.
So that's how you find happiness, is to do the will of the Father for you, because he actually created you to have a good experience in this existence. And so, I was thinking to myself, Wes, is there this is the last one. Is there I think about myself of like, if someone just stumbled onto this channel and they're looking at what we're talking about, they've heard you and I both mention this idea of, physics, chemistry, science, buoyancy, angular perspective, and they're like, oh, well, man, okay, so it sounds like these boys paid attention in public school, right? Like they passed general physical sciences, maybe took a physics class, took some trig, whatever. And then they just throw in all this biblical stuff. It sounds like a myth, a fairy tale. It's crazy. What is this craziness? 1,500 miles tall, massive city that dwarfs Mount Everest. That's ridiculous. Like, what is this weird religiousness that they just brought into this? And I just thought to myself, like, think about the correlation of the most basics of Scripture, which is the behavior that it encourages you to do, right? To love your neighbor, to love God, to be good to others. And then it lays out all these wonderful rules of wisdom on how you can do that. Right. According to the circumstance or the context of your life.
Instructions for right behavior.
It's very simple. It's laid out for you to follow, to learn and practice. And with those instructions for how you interact in your life and with other people around you is included in the scriptures, the history, the surrounding context of the nations, the friction, the politics, the ups and downs of the characters highlighted from time to time, but consistently throughout the entire story. Whereas you see that this behavior that continually is not followed throughout the entire story creates all these problems. At the end of the story, the creator of this grand story says, I'm going to come back and I'm going to help everyone follow this behavior so there's peace on earth.
That's right.
And by the way, I'm going to come back in a way that is incredibly obvious so that no one will be able to not know. This is what Isaiah talks about, that he's glorified in the sight of the nations. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the point of that is there's a specific correlation in the scriptures with history that can be correlated, absolutely validated with archaeology and anthropology, and continually is. It's just never covered in the news. The behavior that you do mixed with real science that can be observed and practiced, mixed with the promises of how the creator is going to make it all come together at the end of the story, right? Now, think about NASA's theology, because that's what we've been reviewing tonight, is a component piece of their theology to get you to believe. So in the Bible, a component piece of theology is, if I were to take the, there's a wonderful example, right? We would take the temple of God. Yeah. Since we saw the symbolism of the ISS and its shape matching an ancient god, right, who used to have a temple. Artemis had a temple. G god. Yep. Yeah. In fact, there was like I reviewed in my Vesican Babylon series, in ancient Macedonia and ancient Greece, there was and Turkey, there was festivals they had to Artemis, where runners would run up to the top and try to be blessed by the gods, and there was involved horrific things. Yeah. So Artemis had her own festival. She had her own temples as well, just same as Diana and Isis. Mm-hmm. So imagine the practical concept of the creator of heaven and earth has a house that he calls a tabernacle, sometimes called a temple. Yeah. And he has these servants inside this house that go, and they're like his amazing cooks. They've done really well. The reason when they got this job is they were supposed to know that behavior that he talked about, and they're supposed to do it really well. And that allowed them to know kind of the Father's, to know the Father, right? To have a good feel for the Father, so they could be trusted to work in his house and make his meals for him.
Yeah.
Because you want the people, like if you're the king, you want people you trust making meals for you.
Yeah.
But how do you gain someone's trust other than practically showing them that you can understand their behavior and adopt their behavior, right? That means you're loyal to them. So these loyal ministers who understood his behavior and adopted it, they came into his house, they were trusted to make meals for him. It was a practical example to everyone in the ancient world that this guy was real, and that this is a practical way to live your life in accordance with this theology. Now, NASA teaches us their theology is about exploring to find answers for meaning while they simultaneously align all of their imagery and the houses they make with false gods, gods that practice murder, death, cheating, killing, cannibalism, infanticide, all kinds of horrific things. The opposite of good behavior, right? And preaching a continued narrative of a supernova of the sun, heat death in 200,000 years, as well as you're insignificant, you have no meaning, you were created by stardust, which means you have no meaning of origination or purpose, and therefore, why would morals matter? We just need to find knowledge. We just need to put more money into these fake scenarios so that we can go further into a place that you can never validate they went, to find some sort of answer for you, like growing lettuce 5 different times in space, right? And that's, what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it reminds me of Gnosticism, right? A focus on knowledge rather than
exactly the theology that they're masking.
Mm-hmm.
It is Gnosticism, where you have to go further to escape the reality you're in so that you can become enlightened, get further to the stars. Well, like it's literally a competing theology to where they've built practical effects to match their theology, but all of it is not based off observable reality of you and I interacting and showing each other love and having a hopeful purpose that our Creator will actually come and hang out with us and allow us to hang out with him, and we can have a good time.
Yeah,
we don't have to worry about impending doom, no meteorites, no asteroids.
Right. On the contrary, they want to take away from the purpose and the significance by having you believe that you live in an ever expanding vacuum, infinite, infinite potential for other life forms on other worlds that are also zooming around in the darkness of space. That it makes us an infinitesimally small, speck of dust amidst it all.
So if you're new to this show or to the idea of Christianity or what it teaches, or the idea of the scriptures and as a whole, and you're wondering how are these guys talking about all this scientific stuff, reviewing these clips and breaking them down and acting like it's all a forgery, it's a fakery, and then they're talking about the Bible stuff. What are these zealous weirdos? Guys, this is observable life. We've been talking about real science tonight that you can observe and test, and how it disproves what these liars are lying to you about. So what else comes with that observable reality is that you were created for the purpose, and that there's a Creator that loves you on purpose. Yeah. So practice his behavior, watch your heart change and expand, and anticipate his promise that he's going to come hang out with you in the future and get rid of all these liars, because there's a ticking time clock for the liars, and they will be getting rid of. Like, that's a part of the rest of the story that we don't have time to go into right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're not just showing these clips just to have a good time and make jokes about them. We're showing you a competing theology, a competing worldview. We're showing you that these people are creating an entire mental framework for which they want you to view your life and existence. They're trying to insert their theological mindset into your heart and your understanding. And the scriptures have a completely different narrative that can actually be tested and observed. And this is the part that, we try to lovingly, wake people up, the they live moment, right? So get the glasses on them, be like, look, you can actually test and observe the goodness of God. You can do the commandments and see that it's real.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? The things he says he created, we've been showing you with multiple 36 episodes, how you can test and observe these things. You know what I mean? So that's our heart for this whole concept, is not 100%. Just to sit up here and laugh at the guys on wires and the green screen glitches. That's easy. But like, we're trying to help you break through the brainwashing, because you've been sold a different theology. And you think you may be atheist or agnostic, and you think you may be above religion because you think it's silly. You've literally been sold a religion your entire life with movies, books, music, when you think you live in a ball in space. Exactly. So I encourage you, check out the Bible, continue watching the rest of our shows, give your heart to Jesus. He's the Messiah. He's the high priest of the covenant. And that's the only way that you're going to understand things that you can actually observe and test and look forward to a hopeful future.
And I'm out.
That's right.
No.
every
knee
knee will bow because they will not be floating in space.
Exactly. You can't. It's hard to bow if you're in 0G.
That's right. That's actually another shirt. Every knee will bow, and on the back it says, "Because you won't be floating on the ISS."
I like it. Very well said, brother. You're always a pro at the closing remarks and just bringing everything together. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. It's become more and more increasingly difficult for me with a few of these topics we've been covering here lately, just because so much has been exposed. There are so many people out here that have been putting together videos and catching them in the act of having their green screen glitches, of the wires being exposed, the harnesses out there. Y'all can do your own research and find it out. I couldn't even include a quarter of it all, right? I dug through so many different.
You showed clips I've never seen before tonight.
Yeah, I was trying to go for the best ones.
For 7 years.
Right. I was trying to go for some of the best stuff that would really stick for you guys to help you understand. And there's just so much to pour through. And so narrowing it down to make an episode like this and keeping it under 3 hours is one of the most difficult things. We'll have the same issue with the moon landing and the moon missions that we hope to cover next time. So I apologize we're not able to do these every week like we were originally, but I'm really wanting to, without putting too much pressure on my life and me to be able to compile the presentations. I'm really wanting to do a thorough justice to it. And I hope y'all have gotten something out of it. If you've been blessed by what we do, feel free to pay it forward and bless us if you'd like. We have lots of options and links in the description of the video below. Y'all can go and get t-shirts that we have, lots of swag available. There are options through PayPal, Venmo, Cashapp. We've got a Patreon that I'd very much recommend that has helped me tremendously and so much. I want to just bless you guys back and thank y'all so much for everything you've done. Y'all have been awesome. And we just really appreciate each and every one that continues to show up. Our audience has been growing. It's been a huge blessing, giving me a lot of fulfillment. And just thank you to everybody in the chat, everybody watching afterwards. We love you guys. We bless you guys. We ask that you bless the Father. May he bless you. We also want to leave off tonight on our outro song. We're doing another ODD TV. Unfortunately, not a lot of the flat earth music and the different musicians that I'd love to show off. A lot of times they'll have copyrights on their stuff, whereas ODD TV and a couple other artists don't. So I don't mean to overplay these guys, but their music is just so fitting. And honestly, that's what I came up listening to when I first started investigating all these topics, right? Guys like ODD TV, Amber Plaster, Conspiracy Music Guru is another good one. But y'all check out his song. And while we play that song, we're going to show one of the official footages of the ISS in orbit, right? From some unnamed space station taking the footage of the ISS. And you'll be able to notice when we compare that to some of the known models and people putting together models that it really doesn't look a whole lot different. So there's another facet for you of what they'll use to do the trickery. They'll just hang a model in front of a screen, in front of a green screen, and insert a globular earth in the background, right? But y'all check that out. You got anything else to say for the people tonight?
Man, I'm all out. I appreciate you, brother. You're a blessing. And
it's always a blast to do this with you, bro. Thank you very much. I have fun with it, and thank you for joining me.
Yeah, it's a blast, like the ISS on the Soyuz, trying to stay at 17,000 miles an hour.
17.5. That's right.
Oh, that's so crazy, guys. You know how fast that thing would be moving, and they would never have time to course correct or adjust. I mean, they would be like, anyway, whatever.
Yeah, we spent 2 hours for it. I hope that's good enough for them. God bless y'all. We appreciate you. Shalom to you from under the seven domes. Y'all check out Illusion by ODD TV. Don't forget the links in the description. Much love. Hope y'all have a good one. Thank you, Sean.
What you see is just illusions. What you see is just illusions. What you see is just illusions. What you see is just illusions.
Take a look around you, what you see is just illusions. Everything goes in circles, but there's no revolutions. They create the problems, then they offer the solutions. We're nothing but going to them, they treat us like subhumans. Take a look around you, what you see is just illusions. Everything goes in circles, but there's no revolutions. They create the problems, then they offer the solutions. We're nothing but goyim to them, they treat us like subhumans. Repeat after me, I am not free. They're lying to you, they're lying to me. What are they hiding? I'm dying to see. Why is it God that they're trying to be? The acquisition of wealth and power is what they know. They've always been among us, they own us, they run the show. When it comes to making a difference, we ain't moving. Freedom is a fallacy, you're just a free-range human. From the crib to the grave, you live as a slave, and that's just a matter of fact. If you wanna see change, forget all the games, we're gonna just have to attack. This is our world and we're snatching it back. If you don't want it, move off to the side. Not for the cowardly, not for the weak, only the strong come along for the ride. Won't be so simple, I'm not gonna lie, but that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna try. With everything that they're doing to all of us, maybe tomorrow we're all gonna die. Either way, they kill us slowly, dumb us down and make us dopey. Everything you see is fake and all the news you get is phony. It's time we show the people how the elite are so deceitful. It's time we rise up high up enough to expose this evil. Take a look around you, what you see is just illusions. Everything goes in circles, but there's no revolutions. They create the problems, then they offer the solutions. We're nothing but going to them, they treat us like subhumans. Take a look around you, what you see is just illusions. Everything goes in circles, but there's no revolutions. They create the problems, then they offer the solutions. We're nothing but going to them, they treat us like subhumans.
What you see is just illusions. What you see is just illusions. What you see is just illusions. What you see is just illusions.
ODD TV, truth of vision, the one and only. They hate the fact that I'm nosy, but I say blow me. I'm a researcher, a real truth seeker. This is my classroom, fool, I'm a school teacher. Prepare to be blown away, everything you know gets thrown away. Take your mind to a whole nother level, put the pedal to the metal with no delay. How much worse must it get before we do something about it? For we are many, they are few, man, we got them surrounded. It's time we think outside the cage where our brains have been placed. The true history of the world has been changed and erased. It's 1984, these things are so Orwellian. Big brother, super totalitarian. Your thoughts being suggested, your speech being suppressed, always being corrected, freedom being oppressed, always under surveillance, in a state of unrest. And if you protest it, they put your ass under arrest. Take a look around you, what you see is just illusions. Everything goes in circles, but there's no revolutions. They create the problems, then they offer the solutions. We're nothing but going to them, they treat us like subhumans. Take a look around you, what you see is just illusions. Everything goes in circles, but there's no revolutions. They create the problems, then they offer the solutions. We're nothing but going to them, they treat us like subhumans.
What you see is just illusions. What you see is just illusions. What you see is just illusions. What you see is just illusions.